Okay, so the bomb dropped. We finally got all the Phase 4 news that everyone was pining for, salivating for, absolutely just hanging out for this whole time. And look, there's really a lot to go through, guys. Season of Discovery is back on the menu. Everyone's got it on the tip of their tongue. We're all discussing it. It's going to be a really interesting period of time with this fluctuation for some, not everyone, between like Kata and Season of Discovery and War Within, if that floats your boat. I know a lot of people who play Season of Discovery don't have any interest in Kata, so that's fine. This won't bother them at all. But I'm definitely sitting here going, fuck, man, Final Fantasy 14 around the corner, Kata, SoD looks like it's going to have a really fun Phase 4. What am I going to do with my time? I'll have to figure it out. But I've already started dividing my time, when I sit down to play it through the day. I'm like a bit of SoD and a bit of Kata, and I'm really enjoying it, quite frankly. But there's so much to talk about, so many like redesigns, new runes, tier sets, Molten core stuff. Guys, we'll go through it all piece by piece. I'll quickly introduce the crew that we've got here. People will come and go. It's quite the veritable gangbang of a call here, but we'll just get everyone saying, "G'day, Arcos, how are you, mate?"
Hey, yeah, doing good. Thanks for having me on.
That's the way. Yep. Shagger.
Evening.
Good evening, mate. Tariak, welcome back.
G'day, mates, and what's the crack?
Mate, how is fucking everything in Old Ireland? And we've got Voodoo.
Morning.
That's the way, pigs. I touch pigs.
Good evening, sir. How's it going?
Good, man. Hey, a new cult hero, pigs, after our last episode when people heard about your toxicity.
Yeah, I've seen some mixed reviews, but I think Countdown's at it best when there's some people you hate and love. Shout out to North. I love to hate that guy.
There you go.
We have a very good Team Toxic in Countdown to Classic, so welcome.
Welcome aboard. Yeah, rightio. I think I'm applying for a spot on the team recently. Anyway, we've also got a few other guys. I'm not sure if you're just listening in or you are going to jump in as well, but I'll say hello to you anyway. Don't feel the need to say back if you don't want to. Drew, Vestige, and KPT are sitting here in the audience as well. So, Vestige, welcome along, mate.
Hello.
Good to have you. All right, guys, look, let's get into it. Go, I'll invite you to speak again. Sorry, I should say g'day to Classic Go as well, who's here. Hey, mate.
Hey, did it clear that up?
Yeah, no, well, not really, but it's all good. It's all good. I'll just remember to wait a little bit after I speak to you. He's on a bit of a delay, like we're doing a fucking live call from on the news from Europe or something with a correspondent, but that's all good. Look, guys, let's get into it. There's a big blue post here that was posted on if I can get the date, the 12th of June, and it goes through a lot of stuff. Let's just sort of touch on maybe some of the easier, quicker stuff to start off with. Then we'll get through the meatier stuff like classes and runes and tier sets and shit pretty soon, but not straight off the bat. So everyone, the post starts talking about the PTR and here's your public service announcement. Please, if you don't know that the PTR is available, it is available now. The devs are begging us to jump on and start fucking around with the game. You can start a level 60 class. A lot of people don't know this. Insta 60, great gear with different gear options. It's a really solid PTR. Dummies out the front of Orgrimmar, Stormwind, wherever you might be. Go smack a dummy for a while. You can also go to the Searing Basin test raid. There's a boss there called Test Work that you can go in with a raid group of up to 20 people. You need a tank and heals to go along with you, and you can test yourself against Test Work. So just get involved with the PTR. Blizzard are really combing through all the data, and they want you to upload logs. If you want shit to get better, help them help you. So get involved, guys. There's my big PSA to start off with. So having said all of that, look, I think I'll just start quickly. Well, it won't be quick, but I'll try and cap this to 10 to 15 minutes on the Molten core thing before we get to, like I said, the classes and the runes and whatnot. It got announced amongst all of the news that confirmed that Molten core will be a 20-man raid. And I think we'd heard that before. And also, interestingly, it's been dug up that it seems to have 3 difficulty levels, a la something along the lines of like your Gamma, Titan Rune, whatever dungeons that we saw in Classic Wrath. So Blizzard has sat down and said, you know what? we heard Josh and Arcos and everyone bitch about difficulty in Sunken Temple. How about we appease these Countdown to Classic fuckers by giving them optional multiple difficulties? And that in and of itself is a really interesting, somewhat hairy and contentious argument amongst gamers as well. People are for it, people are against it. There's no right answers here, no right or wrong answers here, guys. I'd love to hear from you, first in best dressed, and we'll pass it around the table. How do you guys feel about optional difficulties in general in MMOs, and then more specifically the fact that MC in SoD is now being delivered with 3 different scaling, difficulties? Hit me. Who wants to go? Nobody. They're all scared. Voodoo, you scared everyone off. Do you see?
I guess from my perspective,
Go Tariak. No, go Tariak. It's all good. Then we'll go to Vestige.
from my perspective, I think it really depends on how the way they do it in terms of what the increased incentive is, because obviously just the increased difficulty alone won't give that incentive for let's say the general or the push for, let's say, the majority of players to try the harder content. But it definitely at least would fulfill that top end of the elites. Like I said, in terms of like ideas they could do is just increase rates, increase loots. Again, it gives you more of incentive rather than just kind of power spike in the gear, because the better players get the better gear and the low skill players just get the low end gear. They could also do a similar to the Wrath of Lich Kings, the Gamma, or the different difficulties they had in that, where basically they kind of like dropped more relevant pieces of gear that's like phase relevant, I should say, not like phase par. So it still makes the current content relevant, as well as making Molten Core relevant throughout the whole expansion. Like I said, let's say if the max difficulty of Rag like guaranteed drop the legendary item, something like that, that's a whole other kind of like niche or panache to it. But it really depends on what level of difficulties there or the amount that they're putting in. But I'd imagine if I was a betting man, I'd probably say it'd be something similar to the Wrath of Lich King heroics, the way they done that, where just either increased drops or just kind of slightly better gear to, let's say, ZG level if we're in AQ kind of level, if you get me.
All right, Vestige, hit us.
Yeah, I'm similar with that. I do like the higher difficulty levels to help kind of expand and make the content go longer. Hopefully, I don't like to see new gear or high gear usually tied behind those gates. But if they did it where, like, hey, we're going to drop more bindings, or we're going to drop more mounts and pets or something like that for people who can do this, I'm all for that. Whatever makes the content last longer. I mean, if we had those kind of options in ST, we might have been rating ST for a few more weeks longer if we could do some more stuff instead of just batching it out in one night. So.
All right. Well, that's an opening bit of positivity for multiple difficulties. Anyone feel the same way as the guys and want to build on those answers, or is anyone balking at this and feels the opposite way?
I'm not so hyped, man. I'm very skeptical, but
color me shocked. Go for it.
I don't really know like where to properly start. What I really enjoy about the vanilla world is that everyone is doing the same thing. There is no distinction between the bosses that you kill. They're all the same difficulty. They have the same abilities. The abilities hit for the same amounts. They drop the same loot with no one guild or group is getting, higher percent or more items per boss or better percentage drops on items or stronger items. Like everyone is just doing the same fucking thing. And I kind of like that. My experience from Wrath is that your guild or your group or you yourself are put in a kind of a bucket of either you do hard modes or you don't. And I mean, that's fair, like guilds or groups or players, they either do that or they don't. But it splits the rating player base, right? Like people who do hard modes or do hero grades, they don't really want to perhaps play with people who don't. While those who are used to doing just normal, they are perhaps more keen to play with players or guilds or
Right.
pucks or
So you're
DPs
saying
that
like,
do the harder
are
content.
you saying from like, you know, a game that wants you to go out and find like-minded people to engage in the content that you like to do, whether that be PvP, raiding, whatever, this sort of spreads us out even further and makes it harder for raiders to be like, yeah, okay, like you're a raider, but are you a rank 3 raider or whatever that I'm looking for to play with? You're saying it just makes that more difficult.
Yeah, like if you're someone who has logs only from normal and you try to get a puck that's going to do, you know, +1 or +2, however this system will work, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to convince them to take you because you don't have prior experience on this difficulty, right? But even like discard all of that, like even then I still feel personally, and this is just my personal opinion based on like what I like to do, I would much rather we just do the same thing and the difficulty is in something else than a difficulty mode, right? Like, I would much rather that we just encourage speedrunning and that's it. Like that's the difficulty.
Shagger, I'll throw it to you.
Like,
It's an
would
interesting point that Arcos raises there. Sorry to cut you off, Arcos.
No,
where it's like, I don't think that's a horrible thing to raise in terms of like, you know, we do tend to gatekeep as a community. Are we just creating further levels of gatekeeping where you are a player who's like, oh, okay, I've done level 1 Molten Core. I am now ready to progress to level 2. I'll look for a team that's doing that. Oh shit, I don't have a log for level 2 Molten Core, no one will take me. Oh shit, I don't have a level 3 Molten Core log, no one will take me. I think that's somewhat fair to raise as a concern. I don't necessarily know that would stop me from implementing the content, but interesting to raise. Shagger, you go for it, mate.
I'm also quite skeptical. I mean, obviously, we don't exactly know what the differences are going to be between the heat levels. But yeah, I'm in a position where I'd rather just have one raid night a week. And so anything that disrupts that is, well, not really to my taste. So, and that would include, you know, having maybe being a part of a team now that is more ambitious, and then I might be put on the sidelines. I mean, this is very personal, right? So it's just me. Question: what's good for the community? I think. Well, my perception is that the people asking for more difficulty is the vocal minority, and that in many versions of the game that we have right now, again and again, it's shown that many people don't really want too much of a difficulty. They just like breezing through, getting their stuff, having a good time.
So are you sort of saying maybe not so much complaining that it's there, but is it a like, who is this for kind of question? If we've just been through the whole clearly establishing the classic players don't like difficulty, why are we making this like, who is going to play it?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. And also incentivizing people to have, you know, because nobody, well, depends on how good established your group is, but, you know, sometimes you might come to groups that says, sure, I'm hard mode. Are you hard mode? Sure, I'm hard mode. It's like, no, we really just want to play, but nobody wants to admit it.
I'll throw it around the group. KPT, sorry, I'm not sure if you've unmuted because you got something to say on this one, but just if you do, just sit tight. I just want to say this. Not that it fucking matters, as the show says at the top of every show. It's not my opinion that counts, but yours. But if anyone is fucking wondering what I think about all this, I honestly, in classic Josh fashion, as I do in many topics, like I'm really neither here nor there on this one. It doesn't bother me. I'm not like passionately for it or against it. You know, if people want to go higher difficulty, fuck it, knock yourselves out. What do I care? My take would change dramatically though, pending, you know, the loot. We don't know anything about the loot differences, and you know, not knowing anything about that, I think it's very easy for me to shrug my shoulders and be like, oh, fucking other difficulties, what do I care? If people want to challenge themselves, go for it. But then when we start talking about, oh, this, you know, the fucking the new Thunder Fury or whatever is only in the rank 3 Molten Core or whatever, and here's the percentage differences in damage between all the different difficulties. I think that does obviously change things and make us think a little bit differently about how we feel about multiple difficulties. So we need to know more about the loot. But I'll throw it back to you other guys who haven't said. And is there anyone else who hasn't said anything on this, who now, having heard what we've started to say, has something to say? No, maybe not. That's okay. KBT?
Yeah. I mean, I really think it comes down to, like you said, the gear. And it's one thing if the gear does drop and it's going to be a higher eye level, because I agree that's not going to be fair to the casual player base that can't clear the level 2 or level 3 content. But if you do implement it where it just drops more content and the better, quote unquote, better, more scaled guilds can get geared up faster, I would be perfectly fine with that. The issue you're going to run into is people are going to say, well, I want a higher binding drop on level 2 and level 3, which that starts to get into that kind of moral gray area where is it okay for people to have more free access to legendaries than other people? And that's where you get into that weird gray area of, is it okay to drop higher or have a higher drop rate for bindings and I have Sulfuras for Hand of Rag? Or should you just keep everything the same base drop rate with just more loot, which I'd be perfectly fine with.
Right. Very good. I'll throw it over to you, Pigs. I'll just add this. What KPT said just got me thinking. I didn't even think of this. Look, however people feel about this, I was just laughing in my head going, if there are highly desirable rewards from the highest difficulty, it'll just be a matter of let the paying for carries begin. You obviously it happens in any MMO, but like Final Fantasy 14 fans will know, obviously, like things like your extreme trials, your extreme carries that people pay good money for or whatever to get, the stuff that drops in there. And you can afford to have that one person that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. If they're paying good money for their slot, people will carry them through to get some gear. Obviously, a la a fucking GDKP. Now, a little bit different because it might just be like 1 or 2 slots that you can afford to take. But anyway, Pigs, you were going to say something, mate. Go for it.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern has already been brought up, but loot, just too much loot. I mean, that was a problem with Wrath. There was a piece for 10-man, 25-man, 10-man heroic, 25-man heroic, and it just by the end of the expansion, it's just my bags were filled with all this stuff, and I couldn't differentiate it, and it created a low value to it, and it just became this big management, especially as a hybrid. You're getting a heal, you're getting your off spec, you're getting your main spec, and I'm worried that the impact that'll have. Maybe the high end raiders get a little nice hat or a tabard or something or a silly pet, but I don't think they should get new, better gear because I think that'll have a larger impact on the overall player base.
Does anyone else feel strongly on this gearing issue? Should the people, Arcos, I feel like you'd feel passionately about this. I mean, I think you might have touched on it earlier, obviously, but I don't even know how I feel about it. Should the people doing the Mythic Plus, the rank 3, the highest end of difficulty get significantly well rewarded for that over others?
Well, that's how they've done it in the past, right? Or in retail, and like when they made the heroic difficulties and hard modes in Wrath. So it would be the natural starting point, I think, based on this previous design. I'm kind of 2 minds here. I don't want there to be 2 different versions of items. Just generally speaking, I don't really want that for the game. I don't think it's good. But if you're going to make multiple difficulties in the raid, and the higher difficulties naturally require more preparation, more consumable usage, more requirement, more reliance on world buffs, etc. That's part of the design. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but then you are telling people, if you want to get the street cred, if you want to get the rankings for your server, for your faction, whatever, you're going to have to invest a lot more time, a lot more gold, a lot more resources into planning, administration, whatever, to achieve this. But you're not going to be rewarded for it at all. It's only going to be street cred. if that's the case, a lot of people just won't play. Like they will just go and play a different version of the game. If the rewards are purely cosmetic, I think still a lot of people will just go play something else, because if you take the subsection of the player base who go for the hardest option always, there's even a smaller partition of that subsection which will only do it for competition's sake and only for street cred sake. Like a lot of people are doing it for some type of reward. But if you give the rewards, then the 90% of the player base who aren't doing it, or the 85% to 95%, like however that turns out, they will cry that they are being gatekept from the best items in the game, and they will be correct for the most part. Like they can improve their gameplay, they can change the people they play with to go and get those rewards, but they will still complain that they are being gatekept, and to a point they'll be correct. So no matter which direction you go, you have like thorns, right, that you're going to stick your fingers on.
All the speed.
Sorry, Pigs, you're just breaking up.
You're
Sorry,
a
mate, you're
robot,
breaking up to start
Mr.
again. You there, Pigs? That's all right, Pigs. You're having technical difficulties. Maybe jump out and jump back in and see if that fixes it. Let me just say something, Arcos.
Cutting out.
Yeah, no, we've got you
Go
now.
ahead.
We've got you now. You go ahead. No, we don't. All right, I'll talk for a second, Pigs. It's all good. I was thinking that I personally don't have major dramas with offering some form of light incentive to these gamers who are the fucking best in the world. Like me, Arcos, the top 1% of healers in the world. That's a bit of fucking countdown lore for you if you guys pay attention to Discord. I put my foot in my mouth recently, being a dickhead with Arcos. But anyway, no, but seriously, rewarding the best players in the world with something that's not necessarily game breaking, but like is a good pretty decent incentive to go and take on this challenge. Otherwise, why the fuck would you be there? And I appreciate the absurdity of me asking the question, and I'm doing it to get people's thoughts sort of moving. The absurdity of me even asking, should we reward people that do the highest difficulty? And there's people screaming at their fucking phones right now listening to this podcast going, of course we should, Josh, you fucking idiot. What a stupid question to ask. Why would they go then if they didn't get anything out of it? A couple of different options have been raised. And there's a number of things that you could do. You could, a thing of mine with SoD, people always feel free to tear this apart, is like, you could offer something along the lines of not necessarily gear, but like a buff. Hey, here's, you killed Ragnaros and you did it on the highest difficulty. Here's a world buff that lasts through death for the next fucking week or something that gives you +5 stats to everything. I don't know, something, you know what I'm talking about, like something like that makes it worthwhile to those guys for going. That's not necessarily just a different version of the same piece of gear that people seem to tend not to like. Another argument that was raised in the Discord just this morning was, the option of would you do something along the lines of cosmetic rewards, which is apparently a thing in OSRS, where they made high difficulty content just give cosmetic changes, that it's the same gear but it looks a little bit cooler, and that's how people distinguish the gamers from the rest of the crowd. That might not be a thing that's as popular with the classic player base. I'm not too sure. I'd have to hear from you guys on that one. But fuck, we're throwing shit against a wall and seeing what sticks here. What would you guys do? And Pigs, I'll just throw it back to you, mate, to say what you want to say. But I'm also generally saying, like, what would you guys do spitballing here to fairly reward the fucking best gamers clearing the hardest content?
I think higher drops of items is not a bad thing as long as items aren't different or better, but higher chance to get rare items isn't totally horrific. I do like the idea of cosmetic, but I also disagree with Arcos. I think that the sweatiest people are going for bragging rights. Isn't that why they do speed runs? They're going for the top parse. These are just things that don't even exist in the game. And parsing is almost the most important thing for the top end people, or pushing raid time. So I think those intangibles are also something that you could reward players with that still have a high value to the sweatiest.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as pigs. Is that parsing itself? I mean, there's no reward for being top 10 parser. There's no cosmetic. There's no banner. There's no title. I mean, what about that STV PvP boss? I mean, literally, there were people getting together trying to kill that thing just to see what the hell it does, and that was fun just to see people come together and see what they can do. So if you put a challenge in front of people and WoW, they will try. A lot of people will try. They may fail, but they will try.
Yeah, to perhaps counter a little bit. Yeah, like most of the how do I put this? Most of the start of the reason to push like this is the street cred, of course. And in this game mode that we have been playing, it is the only reason because there is no other alternative reward that is being given out. But when you create these extra difficulties, you are either giving more rewards or you're not. Right? If you don't give more rewards, then it's just that's just the street cred. And if you look at the amount of guilds that are pushing for time, for example, in Sunken Temple compared to Nomergan and BFD, there's a huge drop-off of people who are actually doing it, even though the raid isn't all that difficult. Why is that? The phase is fucking boring, right? So I'm kind of expecting the perhaps same or similar result if there is no reward outside of street cred. Like, why am I farming 300 400 gold a week to spend all of it on consumes every week for the raid if there's no additional reward for me?
Well, I mean,
Some
I think it's a
people
fair
will do
question.
it.
I think
it
it's a
will
fair
be competitive,
question.
but a lot of people will drop out, just like they've dropped out of competing for speedrunning in this phase.
Yeah, I think it's a fair sort of. I think the guys have a point in terms of like, there's always going to be a decent amount of people that do chase the challenge, because like, in hearing what you said, Arcos, and I know you'll agree with this, it's kind of like, well, why do people race to world first? What's in it for them? To do it like instantly when you can just do it with the boys 3 days later over, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, getting the world first means that your name is on the front page of the logs for the entire phase, right? So it's a little bit more like permanent street cred than just being competitive on speed. But like I 100% agree that the street cred is the biggest thing, and that's what I replied to one of your posts in the Discord. Like, if you're only giving cosmetics, we're gonna push the hardest difficulty regardless of the cosmetic or not, because the other thing is the street cred, right?
Well, yeah, fair enough. So, and to that point, John, I might throw you in the mix if that's okay, mate. Sorry, I'm not sure if you were just listening along, and then Fred, I'll get to you. And by the way, everyone in the audience, you're more than welcome to join in, guys. If you do want to join, guys like Benchy, Elianath, Gecko, Artie, L19, and Bindi, you're more than welcome just to listen in. But if you did want to join in, just right-click your profile picture and put up your hand to invite to speak or whatever, and we'll sort it out. But back to you, John. I'll implement this question from Drew, and I think it's a fair one to ask, which the guys might have touched on this or danced around it while we've been talking about this topic. Drew's saying, like, Josh, we also probably need to raise that if there are levels of difficulty, and you'll know this being a retail player, John, won't it be the case that players, if there's a good reward for the hardest mode, that's all that people will want to do, and you kind of render the lower difficulties obsolete? Whereas if there's no reward or not a good enough reward for the highest difficulty, then you render the highest difficulty obsolete because everyone will just play the lowest difficulty. Do you know what I mean?
Not. I mean, I'm familiar with people saying things like that. It's just I don't know how true and or accurate that is. I mean, because at the end of the day, people are going to play content that they enjoy. And there's lots of people who are totally cool with LFR, or they're cool with whatever they want to do with and play however they want to play. And that's, to me, that's how it should be. I would also, the other thing that having multiple difficulties does is it gives you an extension of more content. Because, I mean, you can run, you try running through it, faster, and try to do your speed run thing, which is totally cool. But eventually, there's only so much time that you can save. And if you have another level of difficulty, then that means you're going to have to approach the content in a very different way.
Fair enough.
And it also helps with your community because, oh yeah, by the way, part of the reason why mythic level difficulty is so difficult is just because the way it's designed is they design it and tune it to have the same 20 people in every single week. It's not designed to be puggable. And if you don't, and if that's, and currently, like Ian's already said repeatedly, I mean, that's the barrier of entry. And if it's too difficult for you, then there's heroic, which can still be really challenging.
All right, Fred, I might throw it to you, mate. Just before we go down this path, Fred, I'll add a funny little bit of flavor here. I've been spending the last 24 hours defending Your Honor over on YouTube, and I was going to shield you from this knowledge, Fred, but someone brought you up on the old YouTube comments. And to be fair, I understood their point. They were like, look, I'm not a big fan of pass lords and people that fixate entirely on passes. They have, it's done funny things with the environment of the game, blah, blah, blah. Fred only ever talks about passes. He's killing me. He sounds like a cunt, blah, blah, blah. And I ran in with my shield up and said, Fred is an angel. How dare you? He's been the greatest guest for years now. I love the man to death. But Fred, I think it probably is fair to say you are pass oriented. But mate, let's see if we can challenge you, Fred, to talk about something without saying the word pass. It'll be like Lenny in The Simpsons not being able to say the letter E in a sentence. What do you think about all this difficulty conversation? And do you think there's anything along the lines of what John was just talking about? He disagreed. Do you think there's anything to Drew's point about, are we not begging to render some of the difficulties obsolete if we don't nail the difference in reward?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I'm surprised I'd have this reputation as a parse lord because
to be fair,
I think when I've been on your show, I'm usually pushing for easier difficulty, and that's actually what I was going to argue for right now with relation to this whole discussion of. I do agree with the point that if the easy difficulty is easier and there's no changes in the rewards, then a lot of people are just going to do the easier content. I think that's probably right. But I want to talk about the street cred point because the counterpoint to Arcos was, well, people do this, they push speed, they push parses, even though they don't have to. So clearly they're going to push harder content, if the hard mode's available to them without any reward. But I think it's wrong to think that like street cred is not like a valid reward in this particular circumstance, because if you have a high parse, it's really easy for you to switch guilds. If your guild generally parses well, it's easy for you to recruit. If your guild parses poorly and the people in the guild have poor parses, people are going to leave the guild. The roster boss, especially now that we've switched from 10 man to 20 man, is real, and it'll be really real if we go to 40 man. So this whole idea that like parses aren't important, again, I guess I'm playing into the parse lord here. It's really important for your guilds because it's going to be hard for you to recruit people, and you're going to be bleeding members all over the place if you're not parsing. And so the reason why people are parsing right now, I think some of it is for the street cred, for the sense of accomplishment, and because they can go on Warcraft logs and see the nice pink number, sure. But a lot of it's like, just generally your investment in the game. You want to make sure your guild survives. You want to make sure if your guild dies, you're able to switch to another guild, this sort of thing. And so I don't think that really comes up in the context of a hard mode, because, if no one's going to care if you have low parses in the harder content, if the easier content gets you all the same rewards, right? And I guess that goes back to the point that John made. So, I agree with that, and I just think like we can't use the fact that people are parsing and speedrunning right now as good evidence of the fact that the player base is interested in doing harder content if it gives better reward, or if it gives no better rewards and it's just for street cred. I don't think that will actually be the case. And that was the point I wanted to make. I guess I jumped back a few here.
No. Interesting. Very good. Wonder is cheering you on, saying Fred is on the money. Well, there you go. And don't worry, mate. Look, there's one YouTube comment and you've been on the show for, 5 years now? I wouldn't stress about it. You've got a fan in Wonder, so that's okay.
Perfect.
I just thought of an example. I mean, it might be not quite the same, but there seems to be like one example of quote unquote just cosmetics for the hard mode, which would be Yogg 0. And my impression was that there are a lot of guilds have did it once to say they did it, and then unless there were people really crazy about the mount, they just went back to Yogg 1 because it was significantly easier. So maybe that's something similar, that, you know, even the hardest, if there is no appropriate reward, if it's just cosmetic or bragging rights, they'll just do it once to say they did it, and then go back to, well, heat mode 2 or maybe heat mode 1, whatever that is.
What do you guys think of my shithouse idea of like the highest difficulty gives you a buff that lasts through death for a week with like +5 stats or whatever the fuck you would do? Is that dog shit or what?
I think the people that are gonna be wanting to do the harder modes of level 2 and 3 they're gonna fucking raid log. So like, cool, they have it in the open world. And like, yes, they can PvP, but I mean, really, at the end of the day, if it doesn't help you parse, the super sweaty people aren't really going to care about it if you can't bring it back into MC the next week.
Fair enough. All right, guys, look,
Sorry,
go.
I did want to make clear my point here, which maybe got lost, which is I don't think they should have different loot value depending upon them. I say fuck it. I think it's bad for the game, but that might have been lost. I think you could interpret what I was saying to be arguing the opposite. But no, I don't want better loot and heroic.
Right, so you're saying no difference in reward between the difficulties. Is that right, Fred?
Yeah, I'm saying that, and I'm also acknowledging that will probably mean no one actually plays the hard modes.
Right.
But I didn't want hard modes in the first place, so.
Right.
But I mean, if even if people don't play that mode, at least it's not going to wind up, destroying and jacking up your game.
Exactly.
So
Well, I don't think that's how you
totally
play,
agree with
though.
that.
I mean, an idea that I had for, not increased drop rates for like actual items, but what you could do is you could essentially implement bosses to be able to drop crafting materials for items like Thunder Fury and Hand of Reg. Like essentially you kill a boss, each boss drops 4 arcane crystals.
Yeah.
Or you kill a boss and they drop 2 stacks of dream foil for greater fire protection potions.
There's a million things you could do outside of gear, right? That's a great point, KPT.
And like the other thing I thought of is like enchants. So like right now we have the ST enchant for your shoulders. That's technically a game bis enchant because shoulder enchants literally don't exist outside of Nax shoulder enchants in Classic. Like they could, if you do it on
DG shoulder enchants.
Oh, true. But you could add a shoulder enchant. You could add like a belt buckle recipe that drops, so you can enchant your belt with whatever you want. I mean,
But
there's a whole bunch of stuff that they could do that slightly will increase player power, but it's not going to be a 20 eye level difference between if you do it on 1 or if you do it on 3.
Yeah,
Now-
I would still recommend. I mean, I was anything that has anything to do with player power, I'd probably avoid. Is what I would prefer. Like, if you want to have a harder game mode, cool. That's all you get. Like, yeah, you have the opportunity to have a more difficult, more challenging game mode. But even if it's now like a standard recipe, people are going to wind up selling it because that's what WoW players do.
Yeah, but then at that point, like, where do you draw the line? Because like technically, gold can equal player power. So if the bosses drop,
I'm with you on
crystals,
that conversation.
like,
I know this idea might be like completely out there, but I've got the impression that maybe this wasn't even supposed to be found. I mean, as far as I know, it was like Crix ran into the portal, and within a second, he clicked the mob, did a screenshot, so that maybe this isn't even hard modes, this isn't even difficult, it's just some testing thing, like versions they tried, and this had nothing to do with what's going to come live.
Yeah, they specifically
yeah,
said that there's stuff in there
sure.
that, is to trick or to specifically mess with us, and some of it's testing, some of it's other stuff. So it could be that it's not actually hard modes at all. It's just actually a testing apparatus that they just left in and forgot to take out.
Hey, can I just say, Pigs, I want to pick up on this point. Ubiquitous, I see you there. Get in here, you asshole. I know you're just sitting at fucking home having your coffee. Pigs, KPT, I'm loving KPT. He's putting his hand up for fucking Rookie of the Week. He's doing great. You were cheering home his idea of the mats drops. I thought it was quite interesting as well, and it's getting some traction there in Discord chat. However, Wonder does raise a decent point, and it would be about how you implement this. He goes, the problem with that is, wouldn't that remove open world content, which is, a big part of Classic? Unless, you got the bosses to drop materials that were non-open world farmable. But you were applauding when KPT said that, right?
Yeah, it definitely could have an impact, and I don't like that on the real world value of items. So that's definitely a good counterpoint. But certain raid items that are contributing to new recipes and all that, that sort of system of new created items, or just more MC mat drops. And there is a negative side that guilds will run that and sell it, but you know they already do that with tier 1 drops. They do that with all the gear to make, or all the ones to make rag once that the hand of rag once that comes out. So I think it would fit well into classic.
All right.
Sorry, if I could just jump with a correction here, which is the World of Warcraft website specifically states that there's variable difficulty, so we know it's not some leaked glitch or bug. They say.
Yeah, I was also going to bring that up. I thought it was in the blue post. Yeah.
It's in their actual like worldofwarcraft.com, not even on the forums. It's
Okay.
on their announcement.
Okay.
Beautiful.
I do have one positive note. I'm excited just to see the new changed raids because I never got to do it in SOM, and I'm assuming they're just going to copy paste that or maybe make some additions. So I think if the hard modes do come in, they're going to have some new mechanics that I saw maybe a video of, but I never got to try out. So that'll be fun.
That's a good point. My assumption, and you all know what they say about assuming, but my assumption is sort of along your lines, Pigs, where I was like, I just presume they're going to use SOM as a building block and maybe extend it slightly, but it will look a little bit like SOM. But yeah, I mean, we've been sitting on the podcast fucking just absolutely kissing Tim's bumhole over all his work he's been doing on these raids. He's been knocking it out of the park the whole of SoD in terms of raid encounters. So I'm really looking forward to what we get with Molten Core as well, and obviously there'll be more beyond Molten Core too, so it's very, very exciting. Guys, we might move on, or we'll be talking about Molten Core the whole time. Just I'll let this be said. If someone hasn't had their chance to say something and they really want to say it on Molten Core, speak now or forever hold your silence, otherwise we'll move on. Anyone? All right, all good. Let's move.
Sorry, I would say regarding the higher echelon players or the top players, the more difficult you make, for example, speedrunning, etc., the less people do it, right? So if the average player might not care how big that scene is, it doesn't affect them, etc. But for me, that's the reason I'm raiding. I want the raid to be easy so that the scene of speedrunning and the barrier to entry is low, so more people do it. I would rather more people say, hey, why don't we try pushing the pace, rather than have more difficult raids that a smaller section of the player base will attempt.
All right. Guys, let's keep pushing through. I'll go back to the post and just see if there's anything else before we get to the classes and runes that we need to discuss. Let me see here. I think we're pretty good. Oh, no, here's one. Here's a quick one. All tanking classes now gain additional damage output benefit from the defense skill in some way. So it seems to be, that they're implementing some form of, like what we see tanks doing in Qatar. Maybe not as fucking insane as it is in Qatar, but they're ramping up the damage of tanks passively from their defense skill. What do you guys think of that? You're on board with that? Doesn't really matter, shrugging shoulders, or it's a big deal? Not a big deal, it sounds like. All right, we'll move on. Okay. Guys, let's talk about the BRM event. We don't know what it is. There will be an event in Blackrock Mountain. Arcos, you were very, 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 very salty about this, as the salty sailor that you are. As much as I hate to admit this, I thought you had half a point, and I did find myself begrudgingly... Only half a point. I found myself begrudgingly nodding along to what you were saying, and I'll let you say it in better words than I will crudely summarize now. However, you basically said, hey man, fucking everyone congregates around Blackrock Mountain anyway. We don't need a reason to send more people there. There was organic PvP. There was organic reasons to go and hang out at BRM and fucking do your thing. If we send more people there via a massive world event, won't that sort of clog up the zone and maybe give us some technical difficulties surrounding one of our favorite zones in the world? You guys chew on that for a second. Arcos can kick us off and extrapolate on what I'm saying. Arcos, did I put it well enough?
Yeah, for the most part, it's It's similar to the way like Sunken Temple War. No, sorry, the Stranglethorn Vale was back in the day, right? Like there was organic PvP that happened there, and for some reason they feel or felt that it needed help. I don't know, in Season of Discovery, so they start messing with it a little bit. My worry, of course, is that this is a PvP event rather than just a PvE one.
To be fair, we don't know.
No, we don't know, but so far, like they have done the events around PvE objectives, right?
PvP.
Even though Ashenvale, of course, just became PvP. Sorry, but the Ashenvale just became a boss rush.
Hot off the press, I didn't know this. Wonder, who stalks Agrend obsessively, has said Agrend has come out on Twitter and said it is not a PvP event.
Okay, well, that's interesting and changes a little bit. So they're not pushing people to go there for PvP then, assuming, right, that it's just PvE, like there's going to be some bosses or mini bosses to kill for whatever reward. But even then, just putting an event in BRM changes the organic and natural way that the two combining zones work. So every 2 hours or every 3 hours, or I don't remember what the timing in the event was, people are going to congregate there for an alternative goal, right? Which is in the form of the event. And that shakes up the status quo, or the old kind of way that these zones worked. I liked the way they did work, so I'm not like super enthusiastic about changing it.
Now wait, sorry, Countdown Publications has to issue a correction. Our informant Wonder was paraphrasing. Crudef has jumped in hot off the press and said, hang on. He didn't say it's not a PvP event. The full quote is, the Blackrock thing isn't something we're going to talk about just yet, but it's not anything like STV though. I can see the confusion with that for sure. So he's just said it's not like STV. That doesn't mean it's not a PvP event. So I don't know, we're flip-flopping here.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I assume it's a PvP event because they've only done events so far that have supposed to focus on PvP. We know how Ashenvale went. But yeah, regardless if it's a PvE or PvP event, it changes the way the zones work. I like the way they worked organically. I would like to keep that. I think there are other max level zones that could use love to get people there. Like there is a PvP objective in Eastern Plaguelands that nobody does ever, because it gives buffs in the zone and no one really cares. Why not lean into that instead of changing something that has been made by the community and has been active on pretty much every iteration of Classic that has an active population? Let it speak for itself and dilly-daddle with some different zones, right? That's kind of how I feel anyway.
Yeah. Just to get a little bit of focus group sort of polling here, I should have asked you guys this earlier with the MC stuff, but we'll bundle two questions into one real quick, even though we're only going to get about, sort of 7 or 8 opinions here, but that's okay. If I can just really quick fire 1-word answers get from you guys. Question number 1, are you for or against Molten Core multiple difficulties, which obviously you just explained when we were talking about it, but just to sort of get the short form answer. And then question number 2, do you want this Blackrock Mountain event to be a PvP event or a PvE event? I just thought it'd be interesting if you get sort of answers from everyone real quick. So Arcos, question 1 and 2, go for it.
No, I don't want variable difficulty or rates. And for the event, I don't want a PvP event. If we're getting an event, we're getting an event. If we could choose, I would choose a PvE over PvE. Can I throw out a suggestion before you ask the next person? Make it variable zones, right? Like the Naxxramas Scourge invasion. So it goes from Silithus to Ashara to the Plaguelands to Syrian Gorge, etc. And you see it on the map. So it's not the same always.
All right, let's get well said, but let's get quick fire answers. Shagger, one word on each. Question one, question two. Question one, question two. Go for it.
Yeah, since there's so little information, I'd rather have no difficulties, and since I rather not kill anybody ever in this game ever, I prefer it to be a PvE event.
Okay, all good. I'm having flashbacks to court where it's like yes or no, and the answer's always in the beginning.
Sir, stick to the topic.
It's all good. It's all good. Tarayak with the challenge. No, it's okay. It's okay. The challenge continues. Tarayak, question 1 and 2.
Like I said, I'm pretty much in favor of kind of like multiple very difficulty, just because it reaches the wider player base. What was the second question again? Sorry.
I don't even fucking remember anymore. You cunts are killing me. PvP or PvE for BRM?
I personally want to see PvE. But hey, I'm
all right. No, that's it. That's the answer. That's where you stop. You said it. KVT, go for it. KVT, we got you. We'll go with pigs.
All right, this is a train wreck. No to hard modes, yes to PvP.
Oh my god, he did it! All right, very good, Fred.
No, and don't care.
Okay, very good. Vestige, how about you? You there, Vestige? Can't hear you, man. Your mic might be disconnected or something. All good, all good. Well, there you go. All right, that was a fucking comedy of errors. Good stuff, boys. Hey, guys, let's keep the ball rolling on this BRM thing. I feel like a few of you might have some interesting stuff to piggyback off of what Arcos said. You know, I don't think it's wild to sort of say I'm down with the BRM event. I'm interested to see what they're doing. It is one of those things where, like, another mild half point of agreement with Arcos, whereas, like, you know, BRM is already cool. Why don't we spice up some of these lamer zones like Ashara or something like that? You know, if we're doing the Season of Discovery thing. So it's not so much that I'm not against the event. I'm sure that, you know, hopefully cooking up something fun, but more the choice of location. Like, you know, send us somewhere fucking we don't normally go or something. I reckon that'd be kind of cool. But what do you guys think? You other guys think about it?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake for them to go to another popular zone, as Arcos said, that they're repeating the STV mistake. BRM's already going to be popping. It would be cool to bring some life to the lesser zones, my favorite being Ashara because it's the prettiest. But whatever they got to do, I think it should be done elsewhere.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd even say Eastern Plague Lands wouldn't be that good just because there are dungeons you want to do at endgame there. So although it's, you know, it's more inconvenience, even now going to Butu Bay just to go by buff and then not being able to speak to the flight master during the event, that's really annoying enough to me. So going to raid, but then say, oh no, it's the event is on. There'll be shitheads wanting to gank us on PvE server. You know, let's change our raid times or something like that. I think, yeah, BRM is the wrong area for it.
You know what I would do? And again, you guys tell me why this is why I don't design MMOs. I would make this event. There might be something like it. You tell me, and I'm just being an idiot. I would make this event with a community obsessed with world buffs. Make it a AQ style mats turn-in event. Maybe you get some of the mats from killing mobs in the area around the event, and other mats from regular, you know, means being crafting and gathering. And if you turn in enough mats during the 3-hour window or some shit, you get a buff, and the mats change every week. I don't know. That's something I would do. But again, this is why I don't design MMOs. Anyway, we shall see. Whether it's PvP, PvE, let's just hope it's nice and fun. It's been, you know, we've had a funny history with SoD and these events from, you know, Stranglethorn Vale to Ashen Vale and whatnot, where they do tend to start. Just remember, guys, please remember this. The first week of this new event is going to be fucked. It's going to be absolutely fucked. It won't look like what it's eventually going to look like. They watch us do it all. They watch us abuse it. They change things on the fly and mend it as we go. Just don't do the thing we always do, or even though we'll invariably do it on the podcast, where we go in after 24 hours and go, why the fuck did they do this? It's so dumb, blah, 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 broken event. And then they eventually fix it 24 hours and everyone stops complaining for the most part. But anyway, we shall see. Anyone else?
Well, I mean,
yep.
They didn't fix STV within 24 hours. Like, they fixed one kind of...
They made a few
exploit.
changes over the first week.
Yeah, but none of them
There were some
fixed the
changes that
event.
made...
It only fixed people hoarding like a bunch of coins with like win trading and shit like that. The event was still fucked for weeks. Like,
Yeah, but they changed the way they changed the way you res and everything. Like, not just the win trading, just like getting around the zone and whatnot.
It still took weeks and weeks for them to get it to a place that it's actually
it took
playable
fucking
by
7
everyone.
days, Arcos.
No. I did the event every fucking week. Like almost every day I was doing 2-3 events. It was so laggy, I could not press buttons. Like, there was no point.
Yeah,
being there.
the lag's the lag is a different story. That's not the event. That's the server functionality. That was different and from server to server, and I totally respect that. You were saying that back then. For whatever god unknown reason, well, I know exactly why. It's due to population, but the Oceanic server experienced none of this. You guys unfortunately got hammered, so I completely respect that you're down on the event because of the lag. But that's not the... Well, it is the event, but you know what I mean? That's not the rules of the event that are causing the lag. It's the number of people that are engaging in it.
Sure, I agree with this, but knowing that your servers can't handle these large-scale events,
yes,
why are you doing them?
Yeah, no, I
why
agree.
are you
I
adding
agree.
more of them if you know it doesn't work? Like, maybe they have a fix. It's going to be capped at 200 people, and then a new layer spins up, and they've figured something out. Like, fine and dandy. But if the event takes 3 weeks to fix, or they fix most of the most egregious things in the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then it takes longer to fix some other things, they've still just fucked the zones that I love and the organic thing that happens there without an event. And it takes a long time to get it to the way they want.
That's a fair thing to say. I think I even put it to Blizzard in either my last interview or the one before, going, guys, why are we creating mass scale events when the servers historically have struggled with large amounts of people in small areas? But anyway, we'll see. Guys, anyone else on BRM before we move on?
I mean, it's called Blackrock Mountain Eruption, so every 2 hours it's going to kill everyone in the zone. I don't know why we're even talking about this. It's a fucking volcano.
Yeah, all right. No, fair enough. It's to be honest, it'll never happen, but my dream of some form of Fortnite style zone shrinking over time map. Maybe that won't happen ever. But we got it in, what was it called? Plunderstorm. But I was like, I need it in WoW, baby, not just Plunderstorm. But anyway, guys, let's move on to... let's talk about the classes. There's other things, little things like, I apologize to everyone. A bunch of you contacted me and said, Josh, it sounded like you didn't realize that they didn't actually cap incursions. That's my bad. I'm so sorry, guys. In the last podcast, I swear I read something somewhere where after we bitch and moaned about incursions in the first 24 hours on the podcast, something did change, that they were going to limit them in some aspect, but they didn't apparently. So now in this next phase, they are putting like a daily cap effectively on incursions. So that's some news there. The Blood Moon event that we've just been talking about is going to be continuing. There's going to be a level 60 version of the Blood Moon event. So more reason to go back to STV and do that in phase 4. I'm not wild about that at all, but hey, whatever. What else have we got? I think it's just time to talk about the classes. Let's do it. We've dicked around for an hour or so. We've been here for an hour and 10. Let's get into it, guys. Let's just start with... while KPT's here, I might actually start with Warrior. Is that okay, KPT? Maybe KBT, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk. Yeah, maybe he's not even here. KBT, let me know if you are around and your mic's just not working or something. If he's not here, I'll put it off. Let's go. Well, no, you're a warrior, Arcos. Well, I'll wait. I do want to hear KBT's thoughts on it if we can get it. Let's not start with Paladin just yet, Tariak. Pigs, Fred, do you want to go in on Shaman?
Sure. I mean, overall, it's interesting. A lot of drastic changes. A lot of the enhancement shaman are freaking out because they're getting nerfed, but I mean, probably rightfully so. And I think they're jumping the gun. Go ahead, Fred.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, I think they're probably jumping the gun, though. I mean, we don't know how any of this works in practice, but I mean, I know people have been running things on their test dummies, but I don't know if enhancement shaman's really going to get hammered as hard as they're saying.
I stepped away for half a second. Sorry, are we talking about shamans, my favorite subject? Did I miss this?
Yes,
no,
sir.
We just started, mate. And Zim jumped in as soon as he heard the S word as well. Let me just, Fred, just before you start up, I should be a good host and just let people know what the fuck we're talking about. Guys, just bear with me for 60 seconds while I read this out. Shaman, new rune, Storm Earth Fire, Chain Lightning cooldown, reduced by 100%. Earthbind, immediately immobilizes all enemies when cast. Flame Shock deals 60% increased periodic damage. Feral Spirit, we all know what that does. You're getting it. Coherence, Chain Heal effectiveness only reduced by 35% per jump, Chain Lightning effectiveness only reduced by 20% per jump, and each spell now jumps to one additional target. Other adjustments. Intellect to power conversion from mental dexterity has been reduced to 65% from 100%. The AP to spell damage conversion from mental dexterity has been reduced to 20% from 30%. Mental dexterity no longer grants any plus healing. Maelstrom Weapon reduced or instant cast procs may no longer be used to cast Chain Heal or Healing Wave with a reduced or instant cast time. Shamanistic Rage is no longer a rune ability but is now a baseline ability from a skill book. Shamanistic Rage now grants 10% of mana to the party, down from 20%. Burn now grants 2 spell damage per level, down from 4. A new rune has been added in place of Shamanistic Rage, Greater Ghost Wolf. Ghost Wolf is now usable indoors and reduces all damage taken by 10% while active. Whew, alright, it's going to be a bit of that, guys. But yeah, you can really hear the nerfs just through all of that, so I know what you're talking about, Pigs. Fred, please continue.
Sure, so I think that the first nerf is this nerf to mental dexterity, which reduces your spell power, and talking about enhancement shaman here, and your spell power and also the attack power you get from your intellect. I think that's warranted. I mean, to talk about the logs here, but again, only to talk about them in terms of class balance, not in terms of you should push for logs. In terms of the logs, they're second highest DPS, so I mean, nerfing them is obviously warranted. I think it is a bit sad to nerf them in this way because it also hurts two-handed shaman, who I don't think needs a nerf. I think maybe they should have, instead of doing this, they could undo that and then instead nerf the dual wield specialization ruin. But either way, I mean, I'm not really complaining. It's a nerf that's warranted. It doesn't change the way they play, so it seems fine to me. The more significant nerf in terms of how it's going to change how they play is that Maelstrom Weapon can no longer be used to heal yourself except with Lesser Healing Wave, and they don't get healing scaling. And I think the reason for this actually doesn't have to do. I think it has to do with the fact that Shamanistic Rage was changed to be a book, because now that means that on that rune slot, you can take Ancestral Guidance. What is Ancestral Guidance, you might ask? Because you've never seen this throughout all of SoD. Fair. What it does is it makes it, when you activate it for 10 seconds in relevant part, 100% of your healing is dealt as damage. So what this means is, now that you could use Ancestral Guidance, in a raid, for example, if your healing was still unnerved, and if you could still use Maelstrom Chain Heals, you could shoot off 2, and if you're really lucky, maybe 3 Maelstrom Chain Heals under this effect. Heal your raid for 10,000, and then also do 10,000 damage. That's an exaggeration, not that much, but that amount of damage to the enemy in raid, that's huge. And if they're in the business of nerfing shamans, allowing them to use AG for free because you just gave them Shamanistic Rage, not on the rune, huge. Also in PvP, that's going to be bad because, I mean, I don't think Enhancement Shaman is particularly strong in PvP. It loses to every class except for Warrior and Feral Druid, and potentially Paladin. But it absolutely destroys them. And those matchups would be even worse. I mean, think about how frustrating it is as a Warrior or a Feral Druid or a Paladin to fight a Shaman and they heal themselves. Now imagine when they heal themselves for 2,000, they also damage you for 2,000. I mean, that's going to feel awful. So understood why they would have to remove the ability to Healing Wave yourself, and then also use Ancestral Guidance to nuke someone at the same time. I think and unfortunately, it kind of leaves Shaman in a weird spot because you can still use, and in PvP, you still will use Riptide probably on your wrist, and you can still use Lesser Healing Wave for Maelstrom, just they have no scaling. So they'll be like good at the start of the game and then kind of get bad because of no scaling. So I would have maybe kept the scaling portion, but prevented you from using Healing Wave and Chain Heal. I think that removal is fine and makes sense. And then also would have nerfed the AG damage. So, instead of it being 100% healing to damage, maybe nerf it to 50. And then, if you hit yourself with a boosted, because you actually have healing power scaling, lesser healing wave on yourself with Maelstrom Weapon, you're not totally obliterating someone because your AG's healing to damage is only 50%. Also, probably worth pointing out that they might be very, very strong in PvP now because Feral Spirits, I think I talked about this on the last podcast, is a very, very strong PvP ability. Basically removes all the weaknesses that Enhancement Shaman had. Like directly. Oh, you can't reach them? Okay, here's a sprint button and also Blessing of Freedom. Oh, you have no hard CC? Here's a stun. Oh, you're kind of squishy and you need an attack to heal yourself? Well, actually, the Feral Spirits heal you with their attacks. I mean, it literally addresses all their weaknesses. So, insofar as they're keeping Feral Spirits, I think just, wider ranging nerfs to their ability to self-heal was also warranted. So I understand why they did that. But overall, I mean, I'm still pretty hopeful about them as a DPS spec just because I mean, the only damage nerfs they got were not huge, and they're second place. So if you nerf second place by not all that much, it's probably still going to be in a good place.
All right, Zim, let me throw it to you, and we won't go too long on Shaman, but say what you got to say. The question is, having heard everything you've heard, do you agree or disagree? Have Blizzard murdered the enhancement Shaman, or is there reason to not be concerned? And also, how does all this affect tanking?
First off, how's the volume?
Perfect. All good, man.
Sweet. Okay. So I like everything Fred said. I'll agree. But with all the changes that come, there's just a new meta that's going to be developed, right? I think that, everybody knows that Shamans scale worth of shit. They don't. They are one of the worst scaling classes in the game. And I think if you're going to nerf that class just because they've been, top of one phase, it's a bit brutal, especially with these. It opens up different avenues and paths, and people will work through it like Fred has already. But everybody just sees like, oh, hey, we got Ghost Wolf and we're cooking, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I was in raid and I saw it was like even the slime, rot slime, whatever, I'd toss out cheeky heals like chain heals and shit like that and help the team out, right? I don't really like that they made Shamanistic Rage not a rune anymore because we're getting into it's really just starting to feel like now I'm actually getting like Wrath abilities in my spell book, which that's not very classic. I mean, I'd rather it be a rune because that makes it a little different, but at the end of the day, it's the same effect. I think the thing that really upsets me the most is obviously just seeing stuff reduced, and that's the entire blue post for Shamans. And then like, oh yeah, reduced, no healing for you. But you got Ghost Wolves. Deal with it. So it's weird because even that Ghost Wolf like reduces damage taken by 10%. It's like I don't really understand. Am I going to use that in a raid at some point? It's a little weird.
Okay, guys, let's quickly touch on Elemental. Everyone knows that Elemental slaps in PvP, blah, 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 but people are saying that this version of Elemental that we're looking at in Phase 4 looks terrifying. Do you guys agree or disagree?
Let me jump on that. I've been doing duels outside Orgrimmar as Ellie, and I maybe lost 10% of them. I mean, it could be bad players, sure, but usually the guys out dueling know what they're doing. Yeah. I've just been exploding on people with Lava Burst at 50% proc. We have so much more crit now. It's insane. I'm a fan. I might swap over for also DPS, but PvP, it looks like a nightmare, which I'm happy about.
Very good. Fred, Zim, have you mucked around on the PTR at all? What are your thoughts on Ellie, if anything?
I actually haven't been on PTR yet. I've been traveling for work.
Oh, dude, you got to get on it.
I know. I just got home.
Fair enough. Fred, how about you?
I haven't tried around Elemental. Other people are Ellie Shaman experts. I'll let them talk, not me.
All right, fair enough. That's okay. Look, Pigs, anything else you can say about Ellie before we move on? Just on the runes or whatever that they got? They feel good? You happy?
Yeah, it looks good. Not a lot of cooldowns. Obviously, Chain Lightning's gone. I'm I'm curious to see if it is as dominant in normal classic as it was a PvP, because I think there's an argument to be made that it was the best PvPer in original classic, and that might be the state it's in now. But we'll see.
Okay. Anything to say on Resto, guys? They got that one rune coherence. Anything wild? I just watched a video the other day, sort of really slamming the Shaman healer in SoD, saying, you know, they suck, they're the worst, nobody wants them. I don't know if that's true or not, but how do you feel about Resto going into Phase 4?
To me, it looks really bad still, and this also has to do with the state of other heals, and we can get into that later, but there's going to be a lot of preventative damage going out now with the healers who are basically pre-healing, and Shaman is all about everyone's getting chunked down and the chain heals bring them back up, and that's just not going to be happening unless there's going to be high damage raids that are bursting the priest bubbles.
All right. Let's move on to Warrior. Yeah, unless you Shaman have any last points to make, let me know. Arcos, and if you can hear me, KPT, just speak up if you have anything to say on this one. I'll start with Arcos. Mate, listen up as... Oh, fuck. Oh, my God. There is so much to say on the Warrior.
We can just go through it one by one instead of you.
No, there's no way. There's no fucking way we're doing that, because we'll be here for an hour talking about Warriors. All right, listen up, guys. I'll try and do my best. Just sit down for 90 seconds. Fresh meat. Damaging a target with Bloodthirst has a chance to enrage you, activating abilities which require being enraged and cause you to deal 10% increased damage for 12 seconds. 100% chance to proc on first Bloodthirst hit against a target. 10% chance for subsequent hits against that same target. Sudden Death. Your melee crits have a chance to activate Sudden Death for 10 seconds. While Sudden Death is active, you may use Execute on any target, and you always have 10 rage remaining after using Execute. Shockwave. We all know what Shockwave is. Other adjustments. Single-Minded Fury no longer causes damage dealt, but now increases movement speed by 15%, up from 10%, and reduces threat generation by the warrior by 10%. Blood Frenzy has been redesigned. It now increases Rend damage by 100% and causes Rend to gain increased damage equal to 3% of attack power per tick, and Rend may be used in any stance. Flagellation has been redesigned. Now causes the warrior to gain rage from physical damage taken as the warrior was wearing no armor. Rampage has been redesigned. Now instantly increases the warrior attack power by 10% for 30 seconds and no longer stacks or costs rage to activate. Requires being enraged, 2-minute cooldown. Wrecking Crew now causes an enrage effect that lasts 10 seconds and increases damage done by Mortal Strike, Bloodthirst, and Shield Slam by 10%. The threat reduction in Gladiator stance is now 30%. It was 10%. Consumed by Rage now activates when exceeding 60 rage. And now always lasts 12 seconds regardless of the number of attacks, but no longer grants a damage bonus. The Booming Voice talent now increases Battle Shout duration by 30, 60, 90, 120, 150%, and reduces its rage cost by 20, 40, 60, 80, 100%. Commanding Shout's rage cost was removed and its duration was increased to 5 minutes. Recklessness now increases critical strike chance by 50%. It was 100%, and the duration is reduced to 12 seconds, but the cooldown is reduced to 5 minutes. Retaliation and Shield Wall have had their cooldowns reduced to 5 minutes. They were 30 minutes. A new baseline ability has been added from the skill book. Meat Hook. Throw out a hooked chain to restrain the target and pull them towards you. Basically, it's Death Grip, guys. Cost 15 rage, 30 yard range, 15 rage, 30 yard range, 35 second cooldown. It's just Death Grip. Can't be used against enemies more than one level above you or anything marked as a boss. Okay, so
where do you want to start?
I just quickly want to start on. Your Death Grip. Like, there is obviously a lot to talk about there. The Warrior has gone through a significant redesign here for Phase 4, and look, there is some bitching from the Warriors. I've seen it. Like, Clevis wasn't happy on Twitter yesterday. There's a bunch of and again, I'm not trying to be Captain Negativity. I'm just fucking telling you what I'm seeing people saying. Look, a lot of people were calling for a Warrior change. We bitched about Warriors Phase 1, Phase 2, and Blizzard said, all right, fucking you pricks, here's a redesign, and we've got it. And naturally, the Warriors are going to have stuff to say about that. But, you know, the one that sort of speaks out to me the most is this Meat Hook thing, Arcos, where I'm like, look, it doesn't bother me. I think it's a really cool ability. It really doesn't faze me in the slightest. The only thing I remember is, I do remember a Grand about, 6 months ago saying we really don't want to introduce runes or abilities that have you manipulating the movement of other players. We don't want you moving other players around the map because it feels weird as another player when you're the subject of a Death Grip to just be like fucking pulled around. It's something we don't really want to do. Now, 6 months later, here we are with Death Grip in the game given to the Warriors. Do you feel like you needed this, Arcos? I feel like you needed it. Like, I was reading some Reddit posts yesterday, Arcos, and all the Warriors were saying Phase 3 PvP, including Phase 1 and 2, obviously, for Warriors, which has been horrible. Phase 3 was awful. everybody seems to have a counter to charge. You feel fucking useless. What's going on? And Blizzard said, well, here's the answer to your PvP dreams, Meat Hook. I've got no drama with it, but like, you know, I'd love an extended conversation, maybe even amongst the non-warriors about how they feel about this. Arcos, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the rune that allows you to use charge and intercept charge in combat. So you have essentially intercept and charge during combat. We thought would open warriors up in PvP more, but they just added so many different things to all the other classes, or most other classes, to counter a little bit. So I think this will definitely help warriors in PvP. The most uses I kind of see though is that the state of PvP is going to be a lot of large scale fights, like in AoE, for example. It's just going to be a wall of AoE and no one in the middle. So this, you know, opens it up to some plays if you have a warrior that can grip people in. But yeah, not really much to say about. Like it's just
okay.
death grip with a shorter range and no like improved capability through talents.
I'd love to hear from you other guys on this one. Like I said, I think it's cool. I'm happy for the Warriors. I don't give a fuck that it's in the game. And I also don't give a fuck. Like, people get very, very, very bent out of shape when devs go back on their word. Personally, like this one, it just doesn't fucking faze me. I'm like, whether a Gren came out 6 months ago or not saying we weren't going to do this and now they're doing it, like I'm shrugging my shoulders going, I don't care. Okay, you changed your mind. But some people get very bent out of shape about that kind of thing. Does anyone feel particularly emotional about this?
I'd say I don't. I'm basically the same opinion as you. So, okay, they changed their mind. I'd just rather have them say, you know, I'm still need that one sentence where Gren actually says, hey guys, we changed our mind. You know, just having this information and then us having to deduce, okay, I guess they changed their mind. That's not really my speed. I think.
You need so you want the public falling on the sword.
No, just just explain. Okay, we didn't forget. We just changed our mind.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Anyone else? Pigs, you got something on this one?
Yeah, I get. I think they went back on their word, but I won't bitch too much about it. I like just having the classic flavor and intention centerpiece, and we slowly each phase get away from it. But I guess this isn't classic, so it's fine if they thought this is necessary. And I think a lot of the classes can escape now, and warriors, I'm sure that's frustrating for them. Like decoy totem for shamans, I just run away from them. So I think they probably needed this if they really thought about it. But I don't know much about warriors. But the overall impact on other classes is what I was concerned about, and changing the feel of classic.
That's okay. It's more like, it's a general question because it affects all of us. Are you going to be spitting chips when you start getting pulled in by a warrior and fucking cut to pieces? Or are you just like, hey man, that's the way the cookie crumbles?
Well, yeah, I found out in a duel. I didn't know this was a thing because I wasn't looking at the other runes, and all of a sudden I ran away from a warrior on my shaman, about to crack him with the chain lightning, and I got pulled across the map. So it was pretty shocking. He still lost, but he had more of a chance. And I feel like a good warrior could definitely utilize this and really shake things up. And I don't know. Remember when Death Grips came out with the DKs? It was pretty jarring when you went into an AV and you were getting ripped around, and it just felt like, oh, something has changed with Classic here now that we're introducing these movement abilities.
Yeah. I must admit it's had a mild impact on me, just because like I'm sort of sitting around at the moment really trying to decide what I'm going to main in SoD Phase 4. I'm not necessarily signed up. Like the rogue will continue on, I'm sure, but like I'm open to another class now for the first time in SoD. And seeing Meat Hook there, this isn't the reason I'm doing this, but like it's mildly contributed to me strongly considering the hunter, because I'm like, I don't ever want to be within 30 yards of a fucking warrior. So I'll be dancing around on a hunter in cheetah going like, fucking try and meat hook me, bitch. But anyway, we shall see. All right, Arcos, back to it. Well, actually, sorry, KBT, let me know if your microphone's working. But Arcos, we will tackle I don't even know where to start. What's the thing? How about this, Arcos? Here's the challenge for you, motherfucker. Tell me something you're happy about with Warriors in Phase 4 amongst everything I read.
I'm happy they didn't normalize rage.
Okay.
I'm happy they decided to redesign pretty much all of the runes, like most of them anyway. Remove the percent modifiers and keep rage the way it is supposed to be and the way it should be. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm happy about that. Like the thing here that I'm not sure if people are like overlooking is that all of this can be easily tuned based on how warriors end up scaling, right? They can decrease and increase the significance of these runes just based on how the stats of future gear impacts warrior output, and they can tune it, I think, to a finer degree than if everything is just percent modified. So I think it will allow them to keep warriors not too far ahead of anyone if they are ahead to begin with. So that's what I'm happy about. Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're happy about. Now, I'm going to regret saying this. What are you unhappy about?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I don't know how this will play out, right? Like, they are completely redesigning the way Warrior's going to play.
Dare we say you have to wait to try it first?
Yeah, I think so.
Have you PTR'd on the Warrior?
No, not really.
What?
Like, there isn't much. I feel to PTR.
What?
I don't understand this PTR other than just people dueling each other and saying, "Oh, this doesn't work" or "that doesn't work."
Even I rolled a Warrior on the PTR. I was out there. I was speaking to the other Warriors. Like, there was you should go and check it out, Arcos. There's a fantastic Warrior conversation that happened this morning in the Countdown Discord in the Warrior channel with the guys really breaking down some of the numbers. But I was saying that I tried Prot Warrior, and like for me, just like I get that it's a 10% chance, but it felt the old Feelscraft. Like fucking sudden death just was proccing all the time. I'm executing left, right, and center. It was wild.
Yeah, I mean, the difficult part here is that the way Warrior has been played since Phase 1 is around, or in PvE, has been around consumed by rage, and the minigame with the rage there. We have no idea how it's going to feel or work not having to balance that as much, because it's not going to give the damage bonus. It's just going to give an enrage effect, which opens up other abilities. But Wrecking Crew is going to do the same. So when you crit, you get enraged for how long was it again? 10 seconds. So we kind of, yeah, we just have to wait and see.
And also, I think it's down to 60 rage instead of 80 rage.
Yeah. It's down to 60 rage, so it's more manageable to get early enrages. Like if you don't crit on your first GCD, maybe you can, and that wouldn't proc the Wrecking Crew enrage, but then you hit your next couple of GCDs and you reach 60 rage, and then you get your enrage. Yeah, I don't know like what to predict with Warrior, because everything is different, right? We're actually going to be using Bloodthirst now, so that's nice, I guess.
Let me read you Clevis's tweet from the other day, and Clevis unfortunately had to go to a baseball game. Well, fortunately for him, but unfortunately for us, he had to go to the baseball and couldn't be here tonight. But I'll read you what he said on Twitter, Arcos, and just see if it resonates with you at all. And again, I'm not trying to doom Warriors here. I'm just getting back on what some notable Warriors out there are saying. And like we say, it might very well be just wait until you play it, until we kind of, have the Viking funeral for the Warrior. Like, fuck, there's some big changes. They might work. But Cleaver says the following, Arcos. I remember years ago, vaguely, Ian Hazakostas describing the appropriate amount of change for an expansion. You don't want too much that returning players won't recognize the game. SoD Phase 4 is way past that for warriors and hunters. For a patch, Flagellation is dead, Single-Minded Fury is dead, Consumed by Rage sucks, the tank is forced to shield slam for defenders resolve. This is not an issue with Shamans, by the way, nuking Fury Prot. Don't pigeonhole buff. Does that speak to you, Arcos?
Sure. Like the changes to Warrior, they've been insane, right? Like they've completely redesigned it now. They changed it a lot before as well. So I do understand what it means there, and I agree. But I think you also need to kind of take into account that Warrior wasn't fun to begin with. So maybe changing now is just fine. I'm not sure like what he means by Single-Minded Fury being dead. I don't really see. I'm not sure.
It just increases movement speed and not damaging more, I think.
Yeah, but it decreases threat, which is always appreciated by a Fury Warrior. Like it's dead for tanking, right? Like it's going to make it so that Fury Prot, or at least dual wield tanking for Warrior is not an option at all.
But to be fair, Arcos, on the Single-Minded Fury thing, like you were on this podcast many times saying Warrior is broken. Why the fuck did the devs lean so heavily on all these percentage damage increases? And then we get something like this nerf to Single-Minded Fury. That's exactly what you asked for, isn't it, Arcos?
The damage component, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine with it. Kind of like it's still hard to say without playing it.
Bring up in your mouth.
Yeah, like I'm fine with it not being a 10% damage increase, but and that's why I don't understand what he means by saying it's dead. Like it is dead in the sense that you're not going to have a warrior dual wield tanking because he would take this rune, but now it decreases his threat. It's like now he's not going to take it, right?
Okay.
So yeah.
Arcos, we'll come back to Warrior. KPT just had some kid aggro. You'll understand what that's like. And then he's going to rejoin us in about 10 minutes. But just before, we'll say your final piece on Warriors. I know there's a lot to go through, Arcos, but we can't talk about Warriors forever. Say your final little piece now about whatever you really want to say about these Warrior changes, and then we'll move on to the next class.
I think Warrior is going to be more fun to play. No idea if it's going to be stronger. I'm excited to see how it does. Excited to see how these changes actually change the game style. I think Fury is going to be way more fun than it is now or has been before. You are pigeonholing tanks into protection and into spamming shield wall. I don't remember what it's called, shield slam. So, yeah,
okay.
We'll have to wait.
Let me say this one thing, and KPT's just rejoined us at the perfect time, so we'll get to him in 1 second. Let me just say this one last question for you, Arcos, and then I'd love to hear from KPT for a bit. Mate, I mean, it's interesting that you say it sounds like it's going to be a lot more fun to play. That's fantastic. That's, again, obviously what people have been asking for because the runes have been a little bit lackluster gameplay-wise up until now. But hypothetically, if the Warrior was fucking just heaps more fun to play and you really loved pressing your buttons in Phase 4, but the Warrior is middle of the pack logs-wise, would you still be happy, or are you the incessantly bitching Warrior that the guys were making fun of in Discord chat saying these cunts are never happy unless they're top dogs?
Difficult to fucking answer, man. Jesus Christ. Like, okay. I'll give you this answer.
Yeah.
The game is called World of Warcraft. The Warrior should be top dog.
Right. So you're saying if you had the most fun class to play, you still wouldn't be happy if you weren't top of the logs?
I would be half happy.
Oh, you're
like,
such
I'm
a fuckwit.
I'm okay
you're
not
such
being
a
top.
fuckwit. Oh my god.
No, it's fine not being top like and above, right? I'm fine if Warrior is top 3 or is top 4 if it's close, right? But if the Warrior, if it's like early TPC or early Wrath where you are literally only there for a buff, then the warriors just doesn't like. There's no point.
All right, settle down. KVT, let's throw it over to you. You can appreciate my fun I'm having with Arcos here. Mate, you were involved in a really good conversation this morning my time, this evening your time, in the Countdown to Classic Discord in the Warrior channel, breaking down some numbers and mucking around with the PTR with Warrior. You were going back and forth with Artie there, and you guys really got into the specifics of things. Mate, tell me what you've found so far with your gameplay on the PTR with the Warrior, and whether you're having fun with the changes.
Well, that's the thing. With what Blizzard did in Tale to the Ruins, like ever since like SoD came out, they just gave us boring ruins, which are 10% damage increase here, 25% damage increase there, which I get because it's easier to tune. But then finally, like when warriors come online in phase 3 and start doing, to be fair, which I'll agree with, is an obtuse amount of damage, their immediate knee-jerk reaction is take every percentage damage rune that they have given us and just tune it to 0. Like with other classes, like Hunter, you get rid of kill command, you get kill shot. I can't think of another instance with classes from phase 3 to phase 4, but they have given other classes different ruins at least. Where with Warrior right now, it's just we're taking away all the percent damage increases. We're redoing the ruins like Flagellation, where it used to give 25% damage, and now it's just you take you gain additional rages if you had no armor, which no Fury or Arms Warrior even cares about. And like we were talking about earlier today, it was theory crafting what we can try and do to squeeze the most out of our class. Like if we can snapshot rend, things like that. Really what I have issue with is it seems like Blizzard has decided to just start stripping away and pull the ripcord on warrior damage and completely neuter the class because of the flat damage increases that they have given us. And it would be one thing if it was still fun to play, but for instance, Single-Minded Fury, you gained 10% damage increase, 10% movement speed. What do? They rip the 10% damage completely off. They give us 5% more movement increase to bring it to 15%. And oh, by the way, your 6-piece with Wrath now, you now have to stance every 7 seconds just to get that 10% damage increase back. So they removed all the damage, and I don't know if they think it's going to be fun for warriors to every 7 GCDs to stance just to maintain a 10% damage buff, but it's not making the class any more fun. It's essentially the same amount of buttons for less damage, and it's more work and less fun. Where if the class was like you asked Arcos, if the class was top 5 damage, not top dog, but still just as fun to play, absolutely I would love to play warrior. But it's just managing debuffs that you have on your bar to try and be top 5 DPS in the game.
So it sounds like the word we might be searching for is does phase 4 warrior appear to be clunky in your opinion?
Yeah, we'll see, because within testing, we all know warriors scale the best, and you scale the most with the world buffs, which are not in PTR yet. But yeah, it seems very, very clunky.
To be fair, if I can throw you some pushback from Twitch chat, KPT, MF Kakashi's just saying, look, I'm not sure about that take from KPT. You know, if you're complaining about stance dancing, that's not that bad. That's literally what makes Warrior difficult in a fun way, like from the vanilla days. And I get that. A lot of Warriors say that the intricacies of popping from stance to stance and having this dance that you do in order to be the top dog is quite fun to a lot of people who play vanilla. But you're saying that you're finding it annoying in SoD. Do you know what he's saying? Do you have any sort of clapback to that, or what do you say?
Yeah. It'd be one thing if they took stance dancing, so like switching from Zerker to battle to defensive, if that didn't take a global cooldown. But right now with this 6-piece Wrath set, anytime you switch out of battles or switch into battle stance, you get a 10% damage increase for 10 seconds. So essentially what warriors are going to be doing is every 7 seconds, because the global cooldown is a second and a half, you're going to be switching out of battle, into Berserker, back to battle. So it's, if they made it where there's no global cooldown and you could press other buttons while you're stance dancing, absolutely, that'd be great. And the thing that I always compare it to is going to be Druids with power shifting. We all know Druids power shift to gain energy back. And the thing is, power shifting isn't on GCD. Where switching stances does put your global. So really, you're going to 30% of the time, you're going to be jumping back and forth between stances, literally just to maintain a 10% damage buff that you had in phase 3 that got removed from your class. That's where my qualm really comes with it is.
All right. Mate, anything else that you really wanted to talk about that you've tested on the PTR in terms of the warrior? If not, I've got one last question for you. But before I get to it, I'll just ask if there's anything else you want to talk about.
It'll be interesting to see if you're going to be going two-handed Fury or if you're going to be going dual wield Fury. I know that really hasn't been simmed yet. The sims don't really have the runes in, so it's really hard to kind of test data points on what would be more. Or if you're just going to go full-blown arms, which I doubt is going to be a thing since, like Arcos said, we now get Bloodthirst with scales with attack power. But that is where I'm interested to see where it goes. Like, what does truly sim the best out of each warrior?
Before I throw my last question at you, Arcos, anything to say about what KPT said, or not really?
No, not really.
Okay. All good.
The stance dancing thing is TBD, but we don't know.
Okay. So KPT, my final question for you, and we'll move on to the next class after this, is like we were sort of just touching on there. I do sort of sit here and wonder. I know that Wonder, our friend Wonder in Discord chat, obviously, we poke fun at the Warriors about being the fucking loudest complainers in the game, whatnot. But in all seriousness, it's kind of like, is Blizzard in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with Warriors? Now, if you, like what I was getting at before, if you make the class fun, is that enough? Or do they also have to be top damage? Like, what will it take to make Warriors happy? Or is it basically just the Warrior at the end of the day doesn't really give a fuck how his class plays as long as he's fucking top of the meters? Now, I know it's hard to say because
top damage in phase. Sorry,
it wasn't top in phase 3.
In phase 2, it is in phase 3 on single target.
Right. I think it's fair to say though you've been right up there the whole game.
Yes. Besides phase 1,
yes.
We were dog shit in phase 1.
I thought you were top of I thought you were top in phase 1 as well.
No, I think in only for cleaving trash, nothing else.
I'm going crazy here.
But in phase 2, even Warrior was good for trash. Warrior was fucking horrible on the last 3 bosses in Nomergan. Absolute fucking garbage.
Okay. So the question is, KPT, how do we even ask this? How would you summarize the player base that plays Warrior? What would it take to make them happy? We have the meme of the crying baby. How accurate is it? Is Blizzard in a lose-lose situation with Warriors?
I mean, yes and no, because a lot of people play Warrior because it's classic. Warriors scale the best out of any class. You get your world buffs, you get all of your potions and consumables. In theory, we're going to be the best class. I mean, the issue where Blizzard shot themselves in the foot is giving Warriors all of these flat damage increases. And like I said earlier, then just pulling the ripcord on the class, saying, okay, you all do too much damage, completely remove this, with giving us nothing in return. I mean, we didn't get any new ruins. Really, the only interesting mechanic that we now have is based off of our 6-piece, which you're going to have to raid MC for 2-3 weeks unless you're just going to be like a Londo and get funneled gear to parse. So if they made the class more fun and we were good being middle of the road, I would personally be fine with it. I would still play a Warrior. I mean, that being said, I also have a Marksman Hunter that I raid on too. So for what it's worth, they now pump this phase, or in theory, Marksman should pump this phase. But I mean, getting back to the original point of what can Blizzard possibly do to make Warriors the damned if you do, damned if you don't situation would be, I mean, giving us something. Reworking a rune like Flagellation, not just saying we're taking X, Y, and Z away to make you do less damage, which for a warrior inherently feels worse because the way we push buttons is by doing damage from rage and not giving us anything back in return besides Meat Hook, which is primarily a tank or a PvP ability.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing we know is that warriors scale. So don't they have to be shit? Because otherwise they will scale too far, and then they have to be readjusted in phase 7 or 8.
Well, we're past that point, aren't we? Because we've already played through the early game where we had these concerns, and they were near the top of the tables.
Yeah, but I mean, now sort of gearing is just going to go upwards because the level is not going to go upwards. So don't they have to be shit to not be, quadrupling everybody else in Nax?
I mean, or the other option that you can do is you, like, instead of lowering the bar for warriors, you raise everyone else up. Like primarily like in like, yes, 2 to 3 target cleave, warriors, great. But I mean, if you're looking for a class that dumpsters everyone on AoE, it's Shadow Priest, but Shadow Priests hate it because there's not many AoE fights. So I mean, I would really raise the floor rather than lower the ceiling, which Blizzard opted to do the latter. They lowered the ceiling on warriors.
All right. We might move on, guys. Otherwise, we'll be talking about warriors all day, if that's okay. Tariak, you ready for your moment in the spotlight?
Hell yeah, brother.
All right, let's do it. Look, Tariak, I'll let you give the fucking Caesar thumbs up or thumbs down. Do I read all of Paladin? It is a lot.
I'm almost tempted just to get you to do it, just see how fast you can do it in.
All right, fuck it. Let's see how fast I can do it. This will be a laugh. Strap in, everyone. Shield of Righteousness. Slam the target with your shield, causing holy damage based on your block value. 6-second cooldown. Vindicator. Your Vindication talent now also decreases the target attack power and increases the Paladin's strength, agility, and attack power by up to 20% for 10 seconds. Righteous Vengeance. Your Judgment, Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Holy Shock abilities now deal an additional percentage of their damage dealt over 8 seconds. Other adjustments. Seal of Martyrdom is no longer a rune ability, but is now learned as a baseline ability from Skillbook. The mana return granted by Seal of Martyrdom is now based on 65% of the damage the Paladin takes from the seal, down from 133%. A new rune has been added in place of Seal of Martyrdom, Divine Light. A powerful, expensive heal that causes 50% of any excess healing from Divine Light to be converted into Absorb Shield for 15 seconds. The Absorb Shield does not accumulate from multiple casts. Divine Light benefits from most talents and abilities that affect Holy Light. Exorcist is no longer a rune ability, but is now learned as a baseline ability from Schoolbook. A new rune has been added in place of Exorcist or Aura Mastery. Doubles the magnitude of the Paladin's current aura for 6 seconds. Aura Mastery is not affected by the global cooldown. Beacon of Light is now 1 hour. Sheath of Light no longer grants bonus healing. The damage done by the Hammer of the Righteousness reduced by 50%, but threat was increased by 100% to compensate. The bonus healing effect from critical heals was moved from the Sheath of Light rune to the Fanaticism rune. Infusion of Light has seen several adjustments. Infusion of Light now increases damage and healing above Holy Shock by 50%, up from 20% and previously was only healing. Infusion of Light now reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock to 6 seconds. Infusion of Light no longer resets the Exorcism cooldown. Art of War has seen several adjustments. Art of War now only applies cooldown reduction and mana cost reduction to Exorcism. Art of War now reduces the remaining cooldown of Exorcism by 1 second for each critical hit rather than fully resetting the cooldown. The Horn of Lordaeron rune has been removed and replaced with a new rune, Hallowed Ground. Your Consecration now also heals party members within its area for 200% of the damage it deals to enemies. The Aegis rune has been redesigned. It now requires the Redoubt talent to have any effect. Aegis grants 30% increased block value and now also Redoubt to the Paladin on a successful melee critical strike, as well as having a 10% chance to grant Redoubt to the Paladin when receiving a melee critical strike. The Enlightened Judgments rune has been removed and replaced with a new rune, Malleable Protection. You can now take actions during Divine Protection, and its duration is increased by 50%, but it only reduces damage you take by 50% instead of granting full damage immunity. A new baseline ability has been added from a skill book, Avenging Wrath. Increases damage and healing done by 20% for 20 seconds, 2-minute cooldown, causes forbearance. Why don't you just tell me the name of the class you want to play? Fuck! Tariak, we did it! That is a big change to Paladin. What does it all mean?
Sorry, I like that. Can you repeat that?
Mate, you're going to be happier than the Warriors, aren't you?
Like pretty much like I said, I think they've basically done like a complete kind of rework, as you see with all the text there. Well, fundamentally, I think they've perfected or they fixed all the adjustments for the most part. like I said, like there's a lot of text, but a lot of it is kind of just like shifting certain things and kind of like swapping things, taking certain runes off and just making them baseline, just to make things a lot more fluid or to make more sense with the runes. One example of this, and I guess we could just start with Holy, is that like Holy literally did not have an option in the chest slot. Now they pretty much done the same thing in the cloak slot, but hey, it is what it is. But they added that nice new infusion of not infusion of light, the what's it called, the new heal.
Hang on, I just read it.
Divine Light.
Yeah.
Divine Light, yeah. So basically, it's kind of, it acts like Holy Light, but if you overheal, it'll basically make that as a shield. So, or and absorb, I think is the technical term, but essentially it just adds a little dynamic or a bit of spice to the single target gameplay, where it's like you always want to kind of end because basically kind of top the tank up with as much of that heal as possible, so you're getting the max out. Possibly some combos there with the Divine Illumination, so you can get it to guarantee the crit as well, would be nice. So a lot of kind of subtlety there, but a little bit of niche to it. And then even with the AoE as well, there's the Consecration rune, which might get nerfed because it's doing a lot of healing for prop paladins.
I was going to say, it sounds like a lot of fun though. I quite like that change.
Yeah, like it's I think it's much needed in terms of just like giving like paladins at least something that's AoE, and then like I said, it'll favor a lot in like stacked fights where it's like you want melee stack. Well, melee in general will usually be stacked, but then anytime one caster is stacked would be a good thing to keep up as well, because it does do a significant amount of healing. Typically, like Consecration wasn't really known as a high damaging spell, but with the crits and all that stuff now that you can do, it actually does a fair amount of healing. Like I said, even for a prop paladin, and then even with the tier set bonuses as well, you're seeing a couple of like AoE things thrown in there as well. So I think that's kind of Blizzard kind of like reaching out the hand and saying, I know we done you dirty, but like trust us, it's worth keep playing the Holy Paladin spec. In terms of the Rep Paladin basically kind of got a huge kind of like change from what it was, but like back to what like is like you would typically kind of consider classic Paladin. Because what happened with Rep Paladins was it just basically put on the fastest possible weapon and proc exorcism as much as possible. So you're basically a Spelden rather than actually being like a proper Rep Paladin. With the new changes to Art of War, they've basically reduced the complete cooldown reset. Now it only reduces the cooldown by 1 second, but this not only makes the Rep Paladin or frees up the Rep Paladin specs, but also in terms of the tanking as well, it's a lot less kind of like bullshit or kind of like just trying to force the same thing where you're just trying to spam exorcism as much as possible. And then in terms of like deep prot as well, well, obviously we got wings as baseline too. So in terms of the whole like, you know, we have that cooldown to actually DPS as well. That's another nice thing for Rep Paladins too. In terms of prop paladins as well, or specifically deep prot, which is what I was worried about, they've pretty much gotten rid of all the weaknesses of Holy Shield. It's now basically like read out where it'll still give you the block percentage even though the charge is gone, which is really nice. They've added I think damage multipliers to it, and on top of that it now increases your attack power based on the amount of defense you had, which is something that basically all tanks get. But again, the fact that they've tied that into the endpoint of the deep prot tree, you now have a valid excuse to not only have Holy Shield but the stack defense, and then on top of that as well, combined with the readout, the Holy Shield, you basically have Paladins being able to get crushing capped as well. So a lot of significance there. And on top of the rune replacement runes, there was one of them, I can't remember which one, it might have been the Enlightened Judgments, I think. Yeah, basically they changed the Enlightenment Judgment rune, which was to increase the judgment range by 30 yards up to 40 yards, and then to increase the spell hit as well. Now, based on the amount of spell hit they put in the game, and on top of the new ring runes where you get 6% spell hit as well, pretty much like your spell hit is kind of like, it should be as easy to get as the normal physical hit anyway. So that's a nice way to resolve that. And they've basically replaced that rune with a 50% basically a shield wall. Essentially, it turns your not your divine shield, but divine protection, which is like the lower level rank of divine shield. They basically turn that into a shield wall for 12 seconds. So they're basically giving the prop paladin all the things that were missing defensively from the warrior, giving them an excuse to go down to deep pro. And on top of that, like I said, even in terms of the shock and the spec as well, the rotation is pretty much the same, because the like exorcism and holy shocks takes 3 seconds and they're basically on 6-second cooldowns. You have shield of the righteous now as well, which is another 6 seconds. So it's basically you're hitting exorcism, holy shock, shield, and then you're basically filtered between Judgment and Consecration, if that as well. And the fact they took Exorcism off the rune and just made a baseline is amazing now, because even as a shotgun you can go for, or just as a general kind of Paladin tank anyway, you can go for Avenger Shield as well. Just as an extra, just kind of like range pull AoE, which is very nice to have. And then that rune slot as well, which I think is the legs. That is basically more of like a utility rune across the board for Holy Paladins now, and Rep Paladins, where there's no damage ability for the Rep Paladin to really take for the two-hander. So they have a much easier time to take Rebuke, to take Inspiration Exemplar, which is like the fear and charm immunity, to take Divine Sacrifice as well, which is the not as good as the Wrath version, but it's still something to offer as well. And I think Aura Mastery got added to that slot as well, which is, again, I would have wanted more something kind of permanent more for the auras, but being able to double the aura usage across the board is very nice too. And then in terms of PvP, Pally Time is at peak sarcasm, so you know that there's a lot of changes in terms of the PvP and the dynamics. But it looks like Paladins are looking very strong in terms of like the survivability that they can have innate. And then on top of that, like I said, you have things like the Wreck Bombs and a lot of stuff that's been added to the toolkit across the board there as well. Can't really go too in depth in terms of the PvPs specifically, but like I said, in terms of the class overall, I think it's been very nice changes. Fix a very dire need in terms of the Rep Paladins should be happy. Deep Prop Paladins, or the kind of, let's say, classic or Wrath of Lich King version of Prop Paladins, like they'll be happy. Shockerdins are happy. You know, we're all happy. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, that's good to hear. Excellent. I'm not sure. The PvP player in me is genuinely not sure how I feel about malleable protection. I'm like, I don't know, man. Shield wall, basically. I don't know. I'd still just have to run away from the Paladin when they pop it. But yeah, no, I'm glad you're happy.
The thing is, though, like, we still don't have any movement at all.
That's
so
right.
It's like, seeing as the Warriors got the death grip, that like that's kind of like I'd probably say Savix would probably be crying that, like, you know, the whole kind of like, oh, they give Warriors everything and they give Paladins nothing, even though Paladins, like you just read out, got a full fucking rework. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very good. All right,
Yeah,
mate.
that's the biggest thing that bugs me, is we didn't get some sort of movement buff or something, some sort of like gap closer or anything. We're still kind of the juggernaut of, well, we'll put up our shield and just keep coming at you.
Oh, there we go.
One thing I will say, just before we close, Josh, is please, Agran, if you listen to this, please make Holy Wrath instant cast. Please, for the love of God.
Oh, God. Yes.
Because it'd just be so much better for tanking. Because it's pretty much, if you're doing AoE, which is what it's supposed to be, you can't really use it if you have like any number of mobs on it. Well, you can, but it's very, very tedious, and you're opening yourself up. You basically just get rid of all your mitigation, which is pointless. So if the Purifying Power rune also made it instant cast, you'd be an absolute G aggro. Just saying.
Very good. Hey, Vestige, sorry, mate. You play Paladin. You've just heard Tariak do his thing for 10 minutes on the Paladin in what was a fantastic monologue there. Thank you so much, Tariak. But Vestige, what do you think of what he said, and what do you think of the changes?
No, he pretty much hit it all on the head, because he covered every single topic there probably was. Them changing Exorcism to baseline is super huge. I play Rep mostly. That is a huge change for us and really opens up a lot of things now. We're not basically horned into one rune that every other rune is going to be based off of. That's really big. Prop Pally just looks insane with these changes. I don't know if the Holy people are going to be happy. I don't play Holy, but I know they were complaining they don't have enough buttons to press. So hopefully with Aura Mastery and the new Divine Light and then maybe Consecration, if they're going to take that, that'll keep them happy. But I mean, this is pretty much a complete rework. Especially for Rhett, of a lot of what we're doing, and it's incredible that we're getting this much.
Well, I was going to say, thumbs up from you, it sounds like.
If it all works out, I mean, it's still wait to see kind of how it all kind of plays out, but from what I can see, at least they put in the time and effort in trying.
Yeah.
It's not like a few changes here and there and said, okay, you guys are off, have fun. It looks like they really did take people's concerns and our opinions and really are trying to figure out how to do this. They said, the Exorcism gameplay of being Exorcism machine gun was not fun. I mean, I literally could not press that button fast enough near the end of ST with all the buffs. So it looks like they really said, hey, we figured out this gameplay is not really that fun, so we're going to kind of change it up and still make things usable and still make it part of the gameplay, but not make it all of the gameplay.
Very good. Well, mate, I'll leave you with one last question. With this, anyone could answer this one, I guess. In your opinion, which class do you think got the bigger rework of the three that really seem to have been reworked? Paladin, Warrior, or Hunter?
I think Paladin only. Well, I play Paladin mostly, so I really do think it is that because it really Red has completely changed in my opinion, and Prot looks like it's going to be probably one of the best tank, if not the best tank. Holy is still, I think, way out to sea. We'll see if that happens. But I mean, it is such a huge amount of changes with the amount of runes. It's kind of crazy.
There you go. KPT, do you have something on that one? Who had the bigger glow up?
I would think, like my opinion would be Hunter's, just with how well Melee Hunter has been performing, to see all the changes that they have made to now kind of move that paradigm shift. Pretty much you're going to be going Marksman or possibly two-handed Melee Hunter. I would think Hunter.
That would have been my guess as well. Tariak, how about you? Who got the bigger glow up?
I'd say, like, as per because I don't play the other classes, but like the Warrior getting the Death Grip, I think that in and of itself is, in terms of like bigness, like that's kind of more so. Oh, I thought you weren't going to do any of that kind of shenanigans. So like in terms of that, I'd say. But again, like there was a lot of changes in terms of like Paladin. That was kind of like taking things off or putting things here. It was not like complete new abilities or anything like that. There's a couple, but that was more so just for the Holy Paladins, because like I said, in terms of the chest, they didn't even have an option. And just like removing exorcism just basically made the leg rune a pure like utility rune, which is much needed, because now like rep paladins aren't, there's no arguments for rep paladin taking rebuke, the interrupt, or the fear immunity, things like that. So like I said, it might be a bigger change in terms of like abilities also for the classes, but in terms of paladin, it's a lot of text kind of changes, if you get me.
I'm finally going to have a kick in raid, so now people can yell at me when I miss it.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. All right, Wonder, ubiquitous, get in here, cunts. You know what fucking time it is. I reckon we tackle Wonder. If you're available, I would love to tackle balance. Here he is. We'll start in on the Druids. All good, Vestige. You go do your thing. Hello, Wonder. Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm well. Hopefully the volume's okay.
Yeah, no, you're coming through loud and clear. You're all good. And fucking Buffhead's here as well. Look, the prodigal son has returned.
What's up, players?
Oh my God. He walks away from the game after week 1 of Phase 3, and then he sees all this tank rogue shit for Phase 4 and walks back like he's like George in Seinfeld, like he never quit his job, just turns up the next day.
That's it.
All right, mate, you sit tight. We're going to get to Wonder first. Wonder, you've been patiently waiting and listening in. Mate, you hear all these classes talking about their radical new changes for Phase 4, and you have been talking in the Discord over the last 24 hours about balance. Dare I ask, how do you feel about balance?
Disappointed.
Oh, Wonder.
But are we surprised? I mean, this just seems to be my normal state of
You're the
behavior.
Arcos. You're the Arcos of Australia.
Fuck. I mean, it's really not good. I sit here going, I want what these people have, and that's the same sentiment when I look across a lot of classes. What seems to be the message that we are getting from Blizzard is, Boomkin, nothing wrong. We're all good to go. We'll be at the bottom in Phase 1. We'll be the bottom of the casters in Phase 2. We'll be at the bottom in Phase 3. And you're highly likely going to be at the bottom again in Phase 4 because nothing too much changes. If I were to try and put a positive spin on things, I think Starfall is good. We're probably going to have very good AoE, albeit some of the other abilities I think are slightly stronger than it, that other classes are getting it in isolation. But because ours can be combined with the use of Hurricane, I think we're going to be relatively competitive on overall numbers.
Oh, well, that's good. Keep it rolling. What else did you find positive?
Within the raid? The problem, well, that's it, right? The problem stops there. Single target, we are going to be disastrous. Like, it's going to be a dumpster fire. will be struggling to compete, probably competing with Shadow Priests way down the bottom, who provide so much value to the raid as a class. I think it's pretty disappointing. All of these changes that the rep paladins are getting, the warrior rework, the hunter change, I think is good. You know, if it works out for them, great. But I wanted that exact same sort of change.
You wanted a rework for balance.
Well, yeah, at least on the single target level. The AoE with stuff all kind of, it just covers that off nicely. The other two rune changes introduce AoE for cats and a little bit more cleave for bears, which I think is great.
A little more cleave for bears? Are you joking? What the fuck is that swipe rune?
One of the things that's interesting by the introduction of these changes, though, and not specifically the rune changes. It's one of the questions you asked earlier in the podcast, but nobody really had a comment on, which was the scaling from defense gearing for tanks and adding to AP. I think that's unique for bears because it kind of makes the survival of the fittest rune obsolete. Like, bears didn't need to get crit immunity before. And if they're going to be encouraged to now stack defensive gear, I don't see what the point of that rune is. Like all bears are going to be running the Wild Strikes rune. And it makes me wonder what's the point of that rune. In terms of, you know, where we are placed with other runes across the class, I think that Resto Druids also have a little gripe to have because the Resto Kin playstyle kind of is being forced out by using or being encouraged to take Tree of Life. So I don't know if anybody knew, but the best Resto gameplay was to go full balance, but use Resto runes, and you'd heal while doing extra DPS. That basically is not encouraged anymore, and you'll go.
I wonder why they're phasing that out. I thought that was fun.
I think a lot of druids also thought that was fun. So to my mind, it means that the only real damage dealing healer that we're going to have is an arcane mage now. Because the melee weaving resto shaman is also
do you think it was
as well.
Do you think it was like that was their response to resto druids being, you know, the number one healer by a country mile, and so rather than kind of nerf the abilities, they've nerfed the playstyle in a weird way?
Possibly. My other feel is if they were to buff balance, they indirectly buff that playstyle as well. So I don't think you can do two. Like, you can't be great at doing single damage as a healer.
Oh, well, there you go.
And then be a great healer at the same time.
There you go.
So,
you should be yelling at the fucking resto druids out there, not Blizzard.
Well, maybe, but you know, everyone should be yelling, you know, wanting and arguing for the best that they can get. Yeah, so that playstyle's kind of disappearing, which means that they're going to be encouraged to take other runes that they may not have been using before. So the Living Seed rune, I think that's what it's called, on the chest slot was basically never taken. Resto Druids will take that now, and the tier set bonus that they have is going to play into that a little bit more. So hopefully the things that they're doing with Resto Druid make the class a deeper, stronger healer. The problem or the issue from a raid perspective is going to be how are they going to compete with pre-shielding from priests, which seems holy moly unbelievable. So I just don't know how that works in practice, but in theory, I think Resto Druids are in a pretty good position. Have I missed anything?
No, so is it fair to summarize? Tell me if I've missed anything. Have we got Resto happy, Feral happy, like bear happy, cat happy, Boomkin business as usual?
I think Resto is probably not like super happy, just kind of like okay. And balance on an AoE front happy, but single target very disappointed.
All right. And fucking, like I joked, but like I know there are people fucking salivating over the bear tank now when they see that, you know, the swipe rune now basically hits mobs on the other continent as well for you. It just fucking pulls everything. What a button. It's funny because we've seen a couple of philosophy changes, Wonder, where I pointed out before, as I said, I don't have a drama with a dev team changing their fucking mind. Mate, they're human. They're allowed to fucking change their mind based on what's happening in the game, right? You start on one position, you see feedback, you change that position, fucking whatever. I don't care. But we seem to see a second one here where you kind of get more AoE tanking coming into effect in Phase 4 when we really got early on inside, hey guys, not every fucking tank is an AoE tank. We want you all to have your certain flavor. And now it feels, maybe not every tank has it, but like the rogue tank, the druid tank, like it feels like fucking AoE tanking's back on the menu. Do you think I'm wild to say that or not?
No, I think you're 100% spot on. And if I remember correctly, when Phase 3 got announced and we were talking about the Gale Winds rune, I made a comment on this exact point going, I thought we were told that AoE isn't going to be a feature, and we have druids who are struggling single target getting an AoE rune, and now we've got a new wave of runes that are coming out, and multiple classes are getting more AoE. So I think you're spot on. We should potentially be expecting to see larger pools with more tanks being able to tank them comfortably. I'm okay if that's what it is. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily bother me. And I don't think we need to know in advance either. My only frustration would be is if your classes are getting all of these AoE things and then the raid design doesn't cause you to really use them, then that's a bit of a problem.
Speaking of larger pools, should we throw in Ubiquitous at this point, mate?
What's good?
Mate, let's get you into the mix now. We'll move on to the Rogue. Wonder, anything we've left on the table, or are we good to move on?
I think the only thing I didn't comment on was the changes to Rake and Rip, as well as Crusader procking for Feral Druids, which I think
of course, I forgot about that.
A fantastic change.
Yeah, fuck yeah, very well received, right?
Yeah. All of those things, and I mean, we haven't spoken about item changes as well, but friggin' Hand of Rag, all I've heard is Feral Druids going, gimme.
Yeah, that's huge as well. Absolutely. I'm glad they did that one. I think that was a good change. We'll stick around, Wonder. We'll get to the tier sets soon too, because I'm not sure if I'll talk. I might save the other classes after Rogue for another day. We'll see how we go. Ubiquitous, mate. You are back, like I said, the proverbial prodigal son. Oh, don't worry, pigs. If you want to talk about other classes, we can do that too. Rogues, mate. Let's start. I don't know if you want to start with the tank or the DPS, but I think, you know, it's pretty fair to say that Rogues are relatively happy with what they've seen coming their way in Phase 4. Have you dicked around in PTR at all? I did yesterday. What's your thoughts?
I haven't got on the PTR. That's a plan for tomorrow morning.
All of you guys are fucking casuals. What's going on here?
I just consume through Discord, really. It looks pretty good, to be honest. Like, it's almost like there's just been some crackheads in here screaming that Rogues are going to be the best tanks in the game at level 60 for the last 6 months.
I knew this was coming.
The prophecy is fulfilling itself. Because even, like, there's little buffs to rolling with the punches that will just increase your threat and stuff like that on top of these new abilities. I like that they've copped out and just given people an AoE, because it's a lot easier to say not everyone needs an AoE than it is to actually design a good game where someone is efficient without an AoE. You kind of try and you go, well, fuck me, maybe AoE exists for a reason, and you just give everyone AoE. I know some people hate it, but maybe it's just what's necessary for some tanks to not be looked over others and such. But yeah, Rogues are eating pretty good at the moment, I think, and the interaction with some of the runes and talents is pretty nuts. It looks like Fell Striker, Fan of Knives, Wrath of the Lich King 60k DPS AoE's back on the menu, so get ready to farm Fell Striker unless they decide to change it and how it operates. But yeah, it's looking pretty wacky. There's a few other funny interactions with Crimson Tempest, so...
Mate, it's, obviously, like, we don't know what's going to be happening with PvP and whether any more dampening is coming our way or anything, but I mean, in mucking around with these new rogue abilities on the PTR, I can tell you that, like, fucking, I put this in the Discord, Blunderbuss feels amazing to press. It's on a 15-second cooldown, which it obviously needs to be because it hits like a fucking truck. 4 targets get blasted in a cone in front of the rogue, and it crit on the gear in the PTR, which is, you know, decent gear but that I was wearing, but not the best gear that you could wear in the PTR. Critting for 2,800, and I'm like, that's fucking, you know, over half of most characters' health pools.
Yeah.
It fucking just slaps. So I'm a bit worried about the PvP implementation, but it's a great ability. I will put the boot into Blizzard and say, come on guys, get on the animation for this one. You fixed your animations in the past. The fact that the rogue doesn't pull out a gun for the blunderbuss ability is fucking abysmal. All he does is the weird lame point animation and a fireball appears above his head. We can do better than that. Fan of Knives feels good to press, eats up 50 energy, but there is a way to reduce that, I believe. A lot of people didn't want Fan of Knives in SoD, but here we are with Fan of Knives, Ubi. So, like, do you feel like that's okay, or did you wish we got a different AoE? Like, maybe Blunderbuss was the answer, but we got multiple.
I personally didn't want Fan of Knives, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's a good ability. I'm just tired of pressing it from playing Wrath, and just, yeah, it's kind of a bit underwhelming. But, you know, it's, like I said, it's easier to say I want something else than it is to actually come up with the something else and it not suck. So, you know, there's a reason why they're pulling these abilities from past expansions. It's because they work and they do their job, so...
And mate, we were screaming for this on the podcast over the last few months, and you were probably the conductor of this train. You know, one of the reasons you're saying that rogue tanks look to be fucking behemoths in Phase 4 and why everyone will stop laughing at us is what they've done with Vanish. And now you effectively get a magic, you know, a anti-magic barrier or whatever, like the Death Knight gets, a shield wall for magic, 50% off magic damage via Vanish, and it no longer throws you in stealth or does any of that shit. We were screaming for the devs to do something exactly like this with Vanish, and lo and behold, here it is. Tell me what you think.
No, I'm glad. It's the most rogue ability rogues have, and for it to not be in the tank toolkit was a bit underwhelming. So it's mad that they found something to do, and it perfectly fills that gap of everyone's been saying that rogues will just get splattered by magic, but at least you'll have this for those, you know, oh fuck moments, I guess.
So do you actually think, because like you and I know what it's been like, every time we tank with randoms, we've had people say like, oh shit, a rogue tank, they actually exist. Fucking no one's played rogue tank. We've been flying the flag the whole of SoD. Do you think now we could actually get to a point where the community goes, fucking looking for 10 more Molten core, need rogue tank?
Probably. I can't see why not, but you know, I haven't looked at the other tank classes to see if they're getting a massive glow up or not. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Fair enough. DPS wise, do you know what Simon's been saying about the DPS changes?
I haven't seen any numbers. I've just seen that it is good.
It is good. They're happy. Simon's happy. He's got a grin on his face.
Yeah, and you know, the Crimson Tempest, I think I'm saying the right thing. It procs Relentless Strike, so as long as you're attacking 4 targets, you can literally just go mutilate, Tempest, mutilate, Tempest, mutilate, Tempest, mutilate, Tempest for eternity, as long as 4 targets are alive. So that's probably going to get, I'm going to call it fixed. I don't think that's what they intended it to work as. Because but maybe that's probably just an oversight of how finishers are coded, because we haven't had an AoE finisher, and now we do, and now it procs individually on every target of anything that's affected by finishers. But yeah, it's, you know, we can't forget the really important things, like Shadow Step being off the GCD. Some crackhead fucking screamed about that for 6 months too.
If only some deranged Australian called out for this for months on a podcast, and his name was ubiquitous.
I'm telling you, they fired up their PTR and they went, "Oh, let me try out these new rogue abilities." And then they went to Shadow Step their co-worker in a duel and went, "Oh, this is shit." And just ran over to their computer, changed it, and went, "There we go. No more GCD on this. That feels horrible." It just took one of them to fucking press it.
They've got a banner in the classic office that just says ubiquitous was right, and they tap it every day. Mates,
you suffered from it in Felwood. Watching you try to Shadow Step someone on a mount and then cheap shot them, and they just ride out of melee range, and nothing happens.
100%. And you're screaming for that yard or two that you know you were off by, just going like, no.
Yeah. Nah, it just makes it feel smooth. It's a lot more fun to press.
Very good, very good. Oh, well, mate, I mean, it's good to have you back. Does it feel good to be back?
I'm running around Felwood picking flowers. It's not particularly inspiring, but I'm keen to give Phase 4 a crack. And
very good.
You know me, that means a sickie and a fucking 12-hour launch day minimum.
Yeah, right. Really any other classes you've got your eye on?
Beg your pardon?
Any other classes you've got your eye on?
The temptation of Priest is always there, being a Shadow Priest of a million years. But other than that, nothing else is quite looking as fun as Rogue.
No, all good.
I have a question for you, Ubiquitous.
Go for
it. Is combat, does that appear to be viable come Phase 4 or not really?
I think it'll make a comeback because Saber Slash is getting a buff, and that was its problem. Its ramp up time will be way better, and it seems like we're in a version of the game that's going to keep seeing quick kill times because we're just so bloody powerful. So that helps it significantly, and short kill times actually flows into combat's lane because they have hefty cooldowns that they can blow every boss. Yeah, I think it'll be on the turn, and you know what? Even if it's not good, Thunder Fury will make people play it anyway, just to get orange pixels.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because like I know with Warrior, it looks like Two-Handed Fury is going to be the best DPS, and then with Melee Hunter getting completely, I don't want to say nerfed, but reworked and not as viable, I was curious to see if Combat was going to be the class to best vie for the orange pixel.
Yeah, someone's got to take it. You know, rogues, we're so charitable and helpful to the guild. I guess we'll take it off their hands if they need us to. No problem.
Maybe we might move on now. This is what I was saying. We'll see how we go here. But Pigs, was there another class that you were dying to talk about?
Yeah, mainly Priest, and just to kind of raise some alarms if there's any devs out there listening, because it's going to affect not only the Priest but also other healing classes.
You start up. I'm just going to whisper Judah, who's our resident Shadow Priest, and let him know we've started to talk about Priests and see if he wants to join. But fire off, mate. What's got you thinking about Priests?
Yeah, if this isn't the time to blow the full load on Priest, you can save it for another day. I don't know much about Shadow, but there's a huge change coming with this new rune that happened in Wrath, and it absolutely, in my opinion, destroyed the beauty that is the Holy Priest / Disc Priest. It's the jack of all trades. It has a tool for every situation. It can go into any type of surgery and come out well. And what happened in Wrath is that Powered Shield no longer has a cooldown, so you can just spam it. And what effectively the Priest became in all of the Wrath raids is to spam the shield bitch. You had no other job because preventative healing is way better than any reactionary healing. So
and people love the strength but hate the gameplay.
Yeah, I did love being on the top of the meters, but it did leave a lot to be desired. only was allowed to click one button. Anytime I deviated, the GDKP leader would fine me or yell at me for causing a wipe when I tried to put some binding heals or something fancy in. It's too good, and you're just subjected to one button.
Yeah, and they obviously,
unfortunate.
I'm playing a priest in Kata. They reworked it immediately in the next expansion where they were like, all right, that's shitty gameplay. Now let's make Power Word Shields like somewhat expensive to cast to the point that you might actually like half think about it. And then also let's add a mana return bonus to the shield actually being fully absorbed so that it's worth it that you're just casting on someone that you know is going to take all the damage.
It's also unfun for every other healer.
That's what I was going to say. It's impacting the healing landscape because now everyone's getting bubbled and nothing's really going out. So you're prepping up your chain heals and your hots just to hope that a bubble bursts, and then you kind of snipe it.
Oh yeah. I played Resto Shaman. I played Resto Shaman in Ulduar, and I fucking hated that.
So I think it's a really, really, really bad thing that's going to hurt more than just the priest class, even though the priest is going to lose the most because it's a beautiful, perfect class. And this is the example of when adding too much runes is a detriment more, because I don't know if they just didn't have anything for disc on their mind, or like, oh, let's just throw a Wrath Talon in, that worked. I think it's a huge oversight and really needs to be reworked, or a lot of healers are going to just not have fun healing, and that's why I quit Wrath personally.
I think that's fair.
Where was the Lightwell friggin' rework?
Hang on,
Surely
one. Yeah, no. I know what you're saying, Wonder. Arcos, jump in. I was going to say, mate. You know, it's a really good point of conversation, I think, and I think everyone could probably chime in on this one if they want, just in regards to how you feel about all those shields going out. But Arcos, I was going to say as well, you checked my logs the other day. You know that how good of a Resto Shaman I was in Ulduar. I think it was top 10 or something. It was something outrageous. But what do you think of all this?
I completely agree with the playstyle being boring from Wrath. I dabbled with Disc Priest and then got so bored I leveled the Holy Paladin instead. But I think the reason they are making this change now is hinted at in the ring rune. So at least on PTR, I've not seen this on Wowhead, but on the PTR, the priest has 2 ring runes available. One is plus shadow hit or shadow spell damage hit, and the other one is plus a holy spell damage hit. Now, what's the actual point of giving priests a rune with spell hit for only holy spells? Atonement, right? There is no other reason to give priests that hit, right? So I think they've slashed the cooldown on the shield because they're bringing atonement. So you're going to be spamming smite and holy fire, and then you might be able to throw in a couple of shields in between, rather than cast a flash heal, etc.
Fair enough. Hey, Arcos, though, do you remember what number Shaman I was on the logs there? It's pretty high, right?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
What was it? 10,000 and what?
10,667.
Fuck yeah! All right. I meant to ask you though.
More.
Sorry. You go for it. You go, Pigs.
Just about healing, also the rings. I was wondering, because all the rings are just basically improving DPS, and there's no impact for healers. I thought maybe they would do something with the ring rune slots. It's all just % hit or plus weapon skill. So I feel like healers are missing, unless Arcos is right and they're planning to give them all hit, so they all have to DPS. But I think that goes against the other classes because Druid is getting phased out of their DPS healer role and shows the Shaman. So I don't know why they'd be giving us healers hit if they're going to take us away from DPSing. But maybe there is a Smite Priest in the works. I don't know.
I was going to say could be Smite Priest.
Are these ring runes for every healer, or is it like?
No, it's for everyone. Everyone gets these. Everyone gets these ring runes. Everyone's getting hit. This is. I was going to ask about this. How do you guys feel about this? This is the thing that they were teasing, saying roll whatever fucking race you want. It doesn't matter. We'll give you the hit. And every class now has these 2 ring slots. So you just shove in axe specialization, sword specialization. Doesn't fucking matter. Everyone gets the hit cap effectively.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone's getting it, maybe it's not atonement.
I think the problem with it is it doesn't necessarily change, at least on the hits, the spell hit side of things. If your talent tree has hit, you're already well ahead of others. So an elemental shaman, for example, gets heaps of hit. Or sorry, a shadow priest gets heaps of hit. It's not like they're crying out, give me more hit. Whereas other classes are desperate for it. So I don't know how it balances across the classes. Like I think it ends up being more impactful for some than others because it allows them to transition into spell power pieces easier.
Oh yeah.
Whereas other classes are still going to be wearing hit gear to make up the difference.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Change our talent specs so
So
we don't
talents as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, keep going, Vestige.
or just adjust our specs so we don't have to use so many talent points on just to get hit. We can actually use some of those points and maybe other trees to make new builds.
Exactly, which is interesting, right, for those classes. But for a class that has no hit, it to my mind, it just spreads the gap between a bad talent tree and a good talent tree.
Okay. KPT, were you going to say something on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, for melee, it's very nice. It opens up a completely different route of itemization, where now, like orc warriors can now use swords because swords are actually viable. Your Priebus isn't going to be having 2 epic axes that are world drops. I mean, as well as I think it also brings casters up onto the level of melee where you don't have to just exclusively be like, I need to find every hit piece I can because the spell hit is just much higher than melee. So in that regard, it also will help any caster come up to the level of melee.
Oh, very good. Well, this sounds like a win. This is a good one. It's a positive note, a slap on the back for the dev team. I love it. Hey, just out of interest, guys, I saw this comment, and I'm not sure if this is right. Someone was saying, we're still waiting for the rest of the runes to be announced. I'm interested to see what's coming after this. But isn't this it, or am I going crazy? Is there more to come, or I thought this was it? This was the last wave of runes, but am I wrong?
I think this is effectively it. I hope there's not more. There's not really any more slots unless we're going weapons or trinkets.
Next slot.
That's true.
Yeah, as far as I know, this is the last set of runes that are going to be. Maybe there might be some sprinkled in here or there for stuff they got to fix, but as far as I'm concerned, it's it.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be a thing where they bring some runes in when the new phases drop later on with new raids. I don't know.
They
That
could.
be something they're holding back.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will. I think
if you clear the hardest difficulty Ragnaros, you get a neck rune. But if you can't do that, sorry, you don't get a neck rune.
Maybe.
I hope it's the end of adding. I hope it's the end of the road for adding runes so that they can finally balance the game.
Yeah, they need to stop doing it because they need to sit there and be able to balance everything.
Yeah.
If you keep adding ingredients into the recipe, you can never balance it.
I agree.
If there's a trade-off here of like dev time making more runes and just fucking up balance versus, all right, we've got our full palette, balance the classes, and put all your extra time into, who knows, maybe tweaking a raid so it's different from what we've done before, then that's what I'd prefer.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that there would be more runes beyond this until I saw that comment. I was like, I've just assumed this is it, and it just makes sense that this would be it. But anyway, we shall see. I'd base that on nothing. Guys, look, I'm aware that we've been going for 2.5 hours. I don't want to keep you all night, but just real quick, and I don't want to like do the hunters and mages and warlocks dirty like I always fucking do on this show. We can put them aside for another day. Look, all I'll say is does anyone here really want to say something about any of those 3 classes? Does anyone alt one of those classes and is passionate about them? The Hunters got this huge rework that we keep alluding to. I am probably re-rolling Hunter for Phase 4. I think they look really fun. I'm a sucker for an Execute, and fucking the Hunter one looks really fun. Does anyone want to say anything, or do we leave it for people who are more well-versed with those classes another day?
I'm actually pretty well versed, and I'm surprised about all these mentionings of rework of hunters. Hunters not being reworked, and now I realize, melee hunters, the useless one is being reworked. Okay, good. I'm safe here with my 40-yard range. I'm doing the same thing I'm doing last time. Good.
Well, wasn't ranged hunter the useless one in Phase 3?
No, it's always been melee. It's always been melee.
Wasn't melee really melee?
No.
Strong?
No. It's always been melee that's been bad.
Hang on. KPT, help me out here.
Now, of course. Jeez.
Yeah,
I just
like-
hate melee. I hate their guts. They're bullshitting my class.
Hang on,
suffer the
hang on.
best DPS
KBT,
the whole
am I
time.
going crazy? I swear Malay Hunter was
No,
very
no, no.
strong. What's going on?
Yeah, they're
No, yeah,
flavor of the month. Yeah.
Hang on, Shago.
It goes Fury and then Enhanced Shaman, then Melee Hunter are the top 3.
In phase
So, I
3,
mean,
yeah.
And they were really good in phase 2 too.
Yeah. So they have had their moment in the sun. So I'm fairly certain that the ranged hunters were just decimated in phase 3, and now they've been. I think Blizzard's sort of gone, oh, look, maybe we don't completely change the flavor of this, fucking beloved class and remove the ranged aspect. So let's buff it again.
Yeah, I mean they were like the best in phase 1 for a couple of weeks, and then they were fucked in the ass, and then they've been crawling ever since.
But like, what do you think of all the changes, Shagger? Are you happy, unhappy? What do you think so far from what you've read?
I mean, I think, I watched a video from Sarth earlier this afternoon, and he basically claimed, I mean, melee, so ranged hunter is going to be still one of the more complex classes, the rotations, and that, I mean, I'm fine with that, It's, I mean, similar question with the rogue, having 3 AoE runes in the same spot. It's like, well, it's just going to be one that's going to be better than the other 2, and nobody's going to take them. So it kind of feels weird. A similar situation with hunters, with volley being changed, but also sort of a trap cooldown being on the same rune. So, well, it's going to be one or the other. So why bother having both?
I think that volley change looks really fun. Volleys,
it does, yeah. But
it's
then I thought, I've got lock and load, which does my does damage increase for single target as well. So it's going to be the trap one either way. So volley change doesn't really do anything.
Hey,
well, I mean, I don't know the numbers, right? But feels like it.
Wonder, let me ask you this one, because a lot of hunters are rejoicing about fucking their lion buff becoming baseline now, and they no longer have to use a rune slot on it. However, I believe that Druid didn't get afforded the same thing. Do you particularly care about that? Or, I'm talking about Wild Strikes. A lot of Druids were saying, hey man, just make Wild Strikes baseline. I don't necessarily know if that's the play, but Heart of the Lion was made baseline. Were you hoping for something like that? What do you think about this Heart of the Lion change?
If I was playing Hunter, I would think that the Heart of the Lion change is good. Because it allows them to get access to some of those other flavorful runes. I think the problem with Druid and having that attitude with Druid is the classes we only get one option really per rune slot.
Yeah, that's right.
If they were to shift something to being optional free, like what they've done with the Hunter one, then we have to get a new rune in its place. So if it's like, what was the kill shot is a new rune that they're getting. I'd be all for it if something were to move off our rune slot and we get a new one. For example, like I can, as a boomy, I went on the PTR and I just went for 2 minutes straight DPSing on a target dummy using, self-sustain. No like extra mana coming from outside sources like Shaman, Ret Paladin, Shadow Priest, whatever. It essentially means that our chest rune is pointless. So if they were to say Fury of the Storm Rage as a rune is gone because the rest of Druid isn't using it anymore, it doesn't really impact the Boomkin, and we're going to give you something else in its place, then I could get around it. And if it's the case where Wild Strikes becomes baseline and all Druids end up running Survival of the Fittest, then I think that's okay too. Or give them something new, but that's kind of the sort of thing that I would have expected if runes have become obsolete due to the natural progression of the game, or the added benefits that they've given around to other classes that have essentially left them pointless, then changing them up, replacing them, giving you new things, I think would make a lot of sense.
Fair enough. guys, we'll probably wind it up there. Look, I huge apologies to the warlocks, mages, and hunters out there. But look, here's what we'll do. Here's the challenge. I'll come back next week and talk about those 3 classes and priests some more. If
throw them some Shadow Priests, yeah,
yeah,
they're dedicated fan base.
That's right. But we need your help, Countdown community. We need you guys to reach out to sign up. The reason we barely ever touch on warlocks, hunters, and mages is because for whatever reason we just don't have those members of the community that are super into those classes. If you're listening to this podcast and you absolutely adore those classes and you are tearing your hair out every time you hear Countdown to Classic that your beloved class doesn't get chatted about at length, step up to the plate, guys. I need you. Help me, help you. Sign up, DM me on Discord and let me know that you'd like to be here next week talking about those classes and we can get that done. Look, I can just quickly say, look, I did dick around with the Warlock and Mage on the PTR. Warlocks basically get an execute phase now via decimation. You know, when targets are below 35% health now. If you Shadow Bolt, Shadow Cleave, Incinerate, or Soulfire, then you can... if you Shadow Bolt, Shadow Cleave, Incinerate, no, and or Soulfire, yeah. Your next Soulfire won't cost a Soul Shard and will be cast 1.5 seconds faster, so that's cool for like a pseudo-execute thing. Shadow Burn is now basically Cold Blood for you, gives you 100% increased critical chance on your next thing after you use Shadow Burn. And you get Infernal Armor, which is, I guess, for the Warlock tanks. For the next 10 seconds, all non-physical damage is reduced by a percentage of your damage reduced from armor, 60-second cooldown. Other than that, fucking virtually nothing changed with the Warlock. They've left it as is. Demonic Grace is no longer on the global cooldown. That's it. So a lot of all the classes got significant changes, kind of except for Priest and Warlock. What do we got here? Mage. Mage was I played around with the Frost Mage. Frozen Orb is a bit of fun. You know, just go out to the PTR and try all this shit, guys. Just give it a go. It'll be up for a little bit. Give it a go. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week about all these other classes, guys.
If I can very quickly add in, I would love to see Demonic Pack become baseline for Warlocks.
All right.
Just because of where it's located and how little, it's like great utility. Would just another reason to bring a Warlock in your group combination, but they're not incentivized to use it because the other runes are more powerful individually speaking.
Fair enough.
Another interesting point is just mentioned the set bonuses of the Warlock tank and the Mage DPS, I think, is that they get in damage immunity, and then so that leads to a question, okay, are we going to need this? So who knows, right? So are the encounters going to change that we'll actually need a damage immunity, and how is the self-banishing actually going to work? Are they going to be banished for 20 seconds, or can they click it away because actually it's a debuff and not a buff? So it's a lot of questions. But
we didn't even talk about the tier sets. I can dive in harder on that next week. But just for now, guys, if anyone has any strong feelings on this, let me know. Who were the winners and losers of the tier sets that were data mined?
Oh, surely we know who the loser is.
Balanced Druid.
It's Balanced Druid, yeah.
Why would a Balanced Druid get Wonder?
Oh, Thorn's damage. Here we go.
Yay.
17 damage going to 34. This is sounding awesome.
Yubi?
Bias, of course. I think the rogue set bonuses are really nice and actually fill particular gaps in the class. I'm super interested to know if rogue tanks will actually use 2-piece damage set bonus, assuming this is all accurate, because it's just faint from Wrath, which means like you pretty much just take 50% less damage from every boss AoE in the entire game forever, like whenever you want. That's going to be insane, and that's on the damage tier based on the data mining. But I think Ellie Shamans look like they're getting a few Wrath goodies, I think. So shout out to them. I think they're a dark horse.
Ellie Shaman winners. Any other winners and losers?
Rep Pally's kind of getting a twisting mechanic in our piece set.
Very good. Does that sound fun?
I don't know yet. I didn't like TBC twisting, so we'll see how this goes.
All right. I think.
So is this tier 1? Is that what leaked?
I think so. Yeah. So like, I think the tier 1 and the 0.5 sets as well or something. I don't know.
Both are out.
Yeah, both are out. So like, My only commentary from it, I mean, it's not even much of a note, but I was like, because I was considering rolling. I was like, again, trying to make up my mind what I'm going to play in phase 4, and I kind of wanted to play a healer, but I looked at like the healing priest tier set bonuses, and I was like, everyone's kind of saying this, like they're solid, they're just boring. So I was like, all right, that probably is the nail in the coffin for priest for me. Maybe I'll just do hunter. But anyone else on anything that they've seen?
I was checking if Arquos was still here. The Warriors damage set bonuses. I can't tell if they're like mad cool or the most lame shit I've ever read.
KPT will
It's just
tell us.
all of them are stance dancing.
It's our 2 pieces. You retain 10 rage when you change a stance, and then 4 pieces. You get to use an ability of the stance you just danced from for 5 seconds, and then it's the 10% damage, 10% crit, and 10% mitigation, which no DPS warrior is going to use the 10% mitigation, which is an issue. And with world buffs, warriors are just going to be at crit cap pretty much once you're full abyss, so you're just going to be in battle stance, dancing back and forth. I don't think you were here earlier, but the verdict is still out. We'll see if they take stance dancing off of the global, it could be fun. It'd be a lot of buttons you can press all at once.
Yeah, that's what I played Warrior in Classic, and I'm there going, there's a lot of stance dancing just in seconds you're not pressing buttons. So the button that you're getting from it, you really want it to be better than the button that you are otherwise going to press, and I don't think any of these are. So, we'll see.
Because I mean, right now it's just you're going to be sitting in battle stance and overpowering on cooldown, and then stance dancing from Zerker back to battle to get the 10% buff, and then pressing your other buttons. The issue is where it lies on the global. It's a second and a half, so 30% of the buttons, or 30% of the time, you're just going to be stance dancing, which is just a chore.
I think the important thing to recognize for anybody that hasn't looked at the tier set bonuses or even the items yet, don't believe everything that you're seeing, because a lot of them are going to change, particularly the stats with the item. Maybe the set bonuses are going to stay, but the stats are way off.
Yeah.
And then, not to go down this rabbit hole, I'm curious to see if like Rag and Ani are going to drop tier 2, because one would think that tier 2 would have been data mined by now.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. We shall see. Well, a lot of
I'm especially intrigued. As I mentioned before, so what does this mean? So why are we going to use this? Like the damage immunity or the ranged hunter set, increasing aggro on distracting shots. Like, when are we going to use this? And is there something new, or is it just weird?
Boys, we might wind it up there. I'll just finish with this final question. Who's hyped for Phase 4? Because I am. I'm on the Kata train. I'm loving Kata, but I'm also excited to get back into SoD for Phase 4. A lot of what I've read looks great. I am very pumped up for it. I want to know if you guys are too. Ubiquitous and Wonder, my only source of trepidation for Phase 4, and it's a niche one, is I'm just not super sure about Shadow Strike. But look, we're kind of stuck there. It is what it is now. It's so low pop right now, man. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm probably teeing up to just go Phase 4 on the US server.
If we could, you can buy a transfer, can't you, for SoD?
I'm not sure.
I think you can.
I've never played on a US server before. I've only played on like OCE ones, but the population is dismal.
There's nothing on the auction house. It is disgusting. Look, granted, it's a quiet time and everyone might come back for Phase 4, but when you're talking 90 gold, brilliant, was it the large brilliant shards? I think something is kind of going wrong. Yeah,
I think we've got like our server went to coma, and the people that hung around are just like probably at an even massive advantage, it'll deter people from coming back. You log on, scan the auction house, you'll go, nah.
I reckon, if you can buy a transfer, I reckon the three of us get together and convince all our mates to go to the US servers, and we'll do a fundraising event or something. But I'm really tempted to go US. I'm off of it. I'm playing Grobulus for Kata, and it is so much better than the fucking Oceanic server. It's so much better than Aragorn. But anyway,
I just checked my guild roster, and like I went to the last online status, and the 4th most recent logon was 22 days ago. And other than that, the other 3 people logged on in the last day, probably because Phase 4 hype. But,
I don't know. Maybe it's the guild that I'm in, but we've got 2 raid clears. Raid's still doing it every week of content.
oh my god!
And it's fucking painful.
Mate.
I don't know. We've had people fucking disappear. And if you try and fill the gap with things you want, it's basically impossible.
there is no one in Orgrimmar or any of that shit. Like, and
Yeah.
this is just an OCE problem, and like, so this doesn't apply to the rest of the world. But like, I get so sick, just to say this, I'm dragging a little bit here, guys, but just Wonder and Ubiquitous, just I've never felt more passionately than I have over the last week over something I've said over the last couple of years of the podcast, which is just pleading to the Oceanic community who fucking refuse to listen to me on this one. And like, look, everyone's their own person. You game however you want to game. I fucking get that. But it's population over ping, and fucking nobody listens, and they all pick ping, and it's like, well, look what happened to your little fucking Oceanic server. And when every fucking game comes out and people scream for an Oceanic server, oh, this is bullshit, why don't we have an Oceanic server? We always get dicked, blah, blah, blah. This is fucking why, dickheads. Anyway.
Well, I don't understand it in a game of GCDs. Like, my 120 ping has not made me press a key wrong the whole time I've been playing with Crusader Strike. Because
I just checked the shop, and you can buy transfers.
Oh, good. I think I might go. I think I'm going to go because, yeah, if I can convince Voodoo and Hunk, Hunk won't leave. I don't know. It's dead, man. And I don't say that in the DED sense. I think it's
Are there Chinese SoD servers?
I don't know.
Because
I thought
to me,
there was no China servers anymore.
No, they're back.
No, they came back.
Didn't they just? Yeah, they announced it coming back.
They
but,
signed a new deal. They figured it out.
I think it was down. They were down when SoD started, right?
Because if we wanted population with a demographic that's got a lot of fucking people, surely we would be bunched in with the Chinese.
True, but how can we even access them? Like, I don't even know how to sign up to European servers. You got to sign to do a European account or whatever, don't you?
Look, I don't know.
You have to go through a Chinese company or something to do.
Yeah, they always kept us away.
All right, no, I've got it. Wonder, we'll get you a ticket to fucking Beijing. You're going to go over there. You're going to sign us all up. Fucking, it's going to be great.
We'll have numbers then. We'll be good.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, guys, on that note, look, that was the final question. Who's excited for Phase 4?
Hot take: incursions should not be a daily quest.
Oh, there you go. I'm against you on that one. Well, actually, let me rephrase that, KPT. I've been screaming for incursions to be changed in some way. I don't think they should be spammable, but like when you say they shouldn't be a daily quest, what do you mean?
Make them weekly or make them spammable. Like, don't make it a chore for the player to log in
Fair
every
enough,
day
yeah.
to do incursions.
Yeah, players generally, feel funny about dailies. I hear what you're saying. I'm not so sure about the spammable thing, but I know what you mean.
Are there going to be any level 60 incursions?
We don't
I
know.
hope not.
I don't think they haven't said anything, so I presume no.
I mean that could also solve the problem if there are only if it just stays the way it is, like it's dead content for end level anyway. So just be for leveling. I don't know.
I'm keen for P4 because now that I thought about it, I like that we're only getting one rune because that means you're only getting one massive power spike while you level. And then the fact that your next big power spikes will be, full tier set bonuses and shit like that. We're actually going to go back to, character power progression via raids and playing long term rather than, like I said, with Phase 3 and 2. If you pretty much leveled, you got 98% of your power creep that you were getting for that band. Now, that won't be the case. Like, hitting 60 will creep you a bit, but then actually getting into the raids for the next 3-4 months after that, you'll probably, you'll go another 30% in power, whereas so far we've been getting 2 agility, 2 strength increases each phase. So I'm ready for us to get strong.
That's the way. Pigs, you pumped?
Yeah, I'm skeptical about the healing thing. I'm just worried because I love healing. But overall, I'm super, super excited. And if you're transferring, you should come over to Lone Wolf and we can do some raids.
I'm actually looking at
Yeah,
Lone Wolf.
Lone Wolf Master Race.
I think Lone Wolf is the one because that's where we get the lowest ping. And again, I just said ping, population over ping. But if we're going to the US, Lone Wolf does offer the lowest ping. I get 177. However, I'm also I'm like Crusader Strike has the bigger population. But Lone Wolf is not fucking far behind. So yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty active. I don't think there's going to be an issue there with the population.
All right.
I know there's still layers Alliance side, so there must be enough people.
Voodoo, mate, get in here for a second. You hear that? Are we going to the US or what? Ubiquitous and us, we're going to start a fucking tour bus to a US server. KPT, what server are you on?
Oh God, I don't even remember. Laughing Skull? Is that a thing?
I don't think so. I think that's a classic one.
Living Flame.
That's the one. Okay. Voodoo, are we buying transfers off to America?
I'm doing it right now.
I believe it. Oh my God. We'll talk about this one today.
Welcome to America.
Mate, yeah.
I understand.
He's already filling out the visa application, passport, all that.
Gotta
crap.
get my
He's already
fucking.
packed, ready to
Wait,
go.
I don't think we need those to get into America, do we?
What do you mean?
Oh, sorry, shouldn't.
Visas. We still need visas. No, Australians don't need visas, but we have to fill out that fucking.
No, just walk through the southern border. You'll be right.
Oh,
I
here we go.
I need
Here we
more
go.
coffee. That went straight over me. I'm like, what do
Yeah.
you mean we don't need transfers? They don't want to level.
It went over my head as well.
My bags are packed.
KPT, were you going to say something? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I do have a question. Because I know in a blue post, Gren said MC is going to be coming out come phase 4, blah 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 blah, and then within that post, he said within a few weeks, Blackwing Layer will launch. What is everyone's interpretation of a few weeks? Because mine's 3 to 4 weeks after MC, we're getting BWL.
Oh, I didn't. Where's this post? Can you link that one up?
Let me
Yeah,
try.
I remember the post. I'm speculating and hoping that we're legitimately going to get each raid released fucking within 5 or 6 weeks of each other, and we'll just be inundated with content. Because even at that point, that's raiding for 5-6 months. How long do we want to do MC to Nax again? Maybe they'll just vibe it out, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're just like, yeah, you guys will all clear MC first day, so here's BWL within a month.
That's going to be a lot of loot drops per boss to justify pushing phase to phase.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just my guess. I mean, who knows? Maybe people, when we get there, maybe everyone will be like, oh, level 60 is mad. I can just sit here for a year again. And
I don't know. My guess is you probably have 7 to 8 weeks of a block.
Yeah, and we'll probably get bigger blocks. Like we'll get BWL with ZG or some shit, and then it'll be even at that timeline. That's 8 months of level 60 rating.
I'll be back in 1 sec, guys. I think someone's just at the door. Carry on.
I don't know. I think I'm with KPT. I think it's going to be faster.
Well, because my whole thing is normally Blizzard is very specific with their wording, and a few normally means 3 to 5. If it were more than that, I would assume you would say a handful.
I'd be down for fucking just flood us with raids, and then if it turns out that you can't, it would kind of be cool for Nax to be out and not literally everyone doing it, because it could technically still be difficult or whatever, and the Arcoses of the world would be doing it the week it came out, which would be 4 months after MC, but other people would try it and be like, oh, no, we got to let's just keep farming BWL and AQ in one night, and then we'll try next week or whatever. But who knows?
I think they will release BWL with ZG, because ZG will be the 20 and BWL will be the 40.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, Diamond's apparently going to be in this because it's on the PTR now, right? At least in this wave, it's not going to be gated.
Yeah, I think we're getting it straight up. But if they're tweaking all the loot, Diamond being out early isn't that nuts. If there's
exactly.
If all the other stuff's going to be as good as Diamond now, so
what do you reckon?
Yeah.
Is AQ40 going to be 20 and AQ20 going to be 10, and ZG also 10?
I don't think. I think they're going to stick to their guns and make us do 40s, because Like, what would you guys rather? We still get 40, but maybe they tweak boss fights to be more difficult or just have new things involved with them, or the work to make them 20 man. Like some of the fights are mechanically designed around 40 players, like Four Horsemen, for example. Obviously in Wrath you could do it 10 or 25, but like all their work will be to literally just water them down to being able to be done. You won't get anything new. You'll just get a shitter, weak version of what we literally know exactly to a T. I would probably have to put up with 40 mans if it meant that they made it cool or changed a few things around. But
I think
I think that's what Grant said. That pretty much that stuff was going to stay mostly 40 because of the scaling issues were going to be too complex and too hard. And they don't have enough people to deal with that.
yeah, and like why blow all your development time on making a 40-man fight a 20-man fight, but now you don't get to change anything? Like you just scale it down. That's kind of a bit lame. And end of the day is if everyone's actually going to quit because they make it 40-man or not, like I think you can. What would you prefer, 20 or 40? 20. Oh well, I got 40. I'll still play.
I think the longer that every phase is with a single raid being released is going to lose more players. So if they have to go to 40, they need to have a relatively punchy pace between each of the phases. And my question is, what did they need this extra time for? That they've asked for with going from phase 3 to phase 4.
Oh well, there's other things. The event and stuff. It seems like it does seem like they're putting in a decent amount of work.
I think if it's prompt, phase to phase to phase, we're rolling from raid to raid in a really short time period, them taking this extra time now to start developing that stuff makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like just giving them a little bit more leg room. But if we're going to have longer time, then within each of those periods, and I don't understand why we need it as long as we've had between.
Yeah, but then that also big that. I mean, if you make MC 20-man and then convert BWL to 40 and it comes out in quick succession, 3 to 4 weeks, that is going to kill 20-man guilds.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah, they just need to fucking lay down the law early so people can plan like just their roster and stuff. I think that would be a nice convenience they could give us. Just be like, look, fucking 110%, you're getting fucking 40 mans, so make sure your guild's got 220s at least. That's it.
I think the immediate thing that we need is the release date of when this fucking shit's gonna launch.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important thing.
Give us a date, yeah. All right, boys. Sorry about that. The fucking dogs are barking. I had a guy at the door trying to asking me to vote green, so that's why I had to step away. Boys, please. All right, this is all falling apart. Let's wind it up. Jay Lazy, thank you so much, mate. I appreciate you and your support. Boys, let's say our goodbyes. You've all been brilliant. Shagger, thank you so much, mate.
You're welcome.
Wonder, mate, you fucking hit it out of the park as per usual.
Glad to be here.
Ubiquitous, you're a cunt.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Voodoo, you're a bigger cunt.
Thank you. Always will be.
No worries. And the Americans, I adore you guys. Vestige, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
Pigs, you're a fuckwit, but I love you.
Cheers, man. See you next time.
KPT, Rookie of the Week. Mate, you were fantastic. Thank you so much.
Anytime, but I'm not a cunt.
I mean, if you want to be, do you want me? Is this like me stepping on your balls in stilettos? Do you want me to call you a cunt?
Yes, please.
You're a cunt. All right.
One of us.
That's the way. All right. Stream, thanks so much. I'll end the stream. I'll chat to the guys off stream for a second, but I'll see you guys later. I will send you Subtle's way.